We are here. We are live. We are going to talk about this ridiculousness with this clown Destiny. And we can object to my usage of the clown all we want. But we're going to demystify this guy because I don't know why anybody would pick this guy as their champion. But apparently people have because they hate guys like Andrew Tate so much that they'll choose anybody. And the problem with that way of doing business, we'll say, is that you might choose the wrong champion. And that's really what this is about, is choosing the wrong champion. And that's the big takeaway, is that if you do that, it can backfire on you and have the opposite of your intended effect. And that's more or less what's happened here. And I warned people, this is specifically what I was warning about on Twitter, was going with the Destiny guy is probably not going to make the point you think it's going to make, right up to and including Tate getting very, very, very much attention, which I don't think that's good. The people who like held up Destiny as winning over Tate were wrong, but just objectively incorrect. It was a big win for Tate, guys. Sorry. And I don't even like Tate, and a lot of his points weren't all that great, but he wasn't wrong. And so, but when you put up a weaker opponent, weaker in every possible way, like Destiny doesn't have argumentation skills. He doesn't engage in argument at all. He just yells at people, and he often resorts to the feminine attack on reputation over engaging with the question, and he get called out for it, like in this stream. Now, I didn't watch the whole stream. I watched the first hour because that's all I could take. I have so many notes from that.
I watched the whole thing, and
I'm sorry, Manuel. I'm sorry.
yes,
It's well, the thing for me is it backfired. And that was the point of my response to the original tweet that I responded to, was this is going to backfire on you. You are backing a weak candidate and it's not going to go well. And that was my only point. I'm trying to help people, like, maybe don't back a bad horse, sort of a thing. And they're like, you didn't listen to the debate and how awesome Destiny. I've listened to the debate. Destiny was not awesome. I'm sorry. He was, at no point did he score any points in a debate fashion or an argumentation fashion. I've seen him in other quote debates. I don't know why everybody just calls every conversation a debate, but he couldn't debate his way out of a paper bag.
I want to disagree here. I think Destiny scored many points, but they were all minus.
Fair. My bad. Mea culpa. It was remarkable. I mean, and again, that's the big ticket. And the worst part is now people like Carl Benjamin. Sargon of Akkad is a big deal. He's like come back to some extent. I mean, he wasn't ever gone, but he was gone from YouTube. He's come back, and now he's like saying things like, stop making me like you, to Tate. This is not the kind of attention you want on Andrew Tate if you don't like him, but you forced everybody's hand into it by propping up a weak candidate, Destiny, and pretending like he won some points in this argument, which he did not. Did not. And you can be upset at Andrew Tate for being an MMA fighter and somebody who's successful and a poor person who came up and made it big. And you're going to be upset about the cam girl thing, whatever that is, whatever you conceive of it to be, right? You're not going to score any points with me in talking about courts and what people will make charges of in court. Okay. That's not going to work. I've been to court. I've had charges made against me that are ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. Ain't not going to work. Like, I'm sorry. People make charges in court all the time that are false. You're not going to make any points as a middle-class child who went to Catholic school and graduated and at least attended college, had a wife and a kid, and lost his wife and kid to a weak, effeminate male. It's just slightly stronger than Destiny. You're not going to score any points with a guy backing a guy with a record like that against somebody like Andrew Tate. If you don't understand why people like Andrew Tate, male or female, because apparently he seems to attract women and be able to, get them to do things for him. And you can be upset about that all you want, but like that is attractive to people, including the women, obviously. You can be upset about that. You can do that. You're just denying how the world works at some point, though. Like, because he can do the trick. You know who can't do the trick? Destiny. Destiny can't do the trick. He can't get that kind of attention. You know, Tate owns multiple businesses. He's been a successful fighter. Like Destiny seems to have hit it big early in the gaming stream because he was in the right place at the right time. And his claim to fame is being acerbic, attacking his gaming opponents. And, maybe he's like, quote, matured a little bit, although his maturity level is still pretty low from what I've seen. He's provocative and combative.
No,
Oh,
you haven't seen the second half of the video, and that's where the immaturity shines.
well, he got terminated from Twitch for like encouraging violence. Like this is not the kind of guy, and he's sitting on both sides of the fence, effectively, of these political issues. And look, you're allowed to sit on two sides of the fence for political. I really don't care. I think politics is a stupid frame, and you're just dumb for using it for anything except voting. But what, like, I'm not mad about that. I don't care. I just don't care. It's just not interesting to me. But the problem is he makes factually incorrect statements just all the time. Things you could look up if you bothered to open the Google. Like that's what blows my mind. And the thing is, in the course of the conversation, multiple times, the guy is just making statements that are refuted by the other people in the Twitter space, and he just backs off of his statement because he's wrong, obviously just demonstrably incorrect. And then he plays all these tricks. And he's got enchantment going on. He's playing all these tricks on people to sound smart or correct about things that he's just plain old wrong about. Like it's not that hard. And what he does is he switches frames on you. And if you don't notice, and I tend to notice these things, and fair enough if you don't. Like I'm not saying, oh, you should notice this. I'm saying he switches frames on you and tries to make a point. Like he'll go after the specific case when a general point was made. It's like the fact that there's an exception to something doesn't mean the thing isn't real or doesn't exist, right? I mean, we don't say, well, we can break out of the Earth's gravity, therefore the theory of gravity is wrong. Nobody says that, right? Like, but that's what Destiny does. He does it all the time with everything. This seems to be his modus operandi. He finds an exception or a way in which you might be able to be interpreted to be wrong, and he runs with it. And that's like okay, like if that's your thing, that's your thing. Also weak, very weak.
Well,
You
that
know,
seems to be his modus operandi, running, right? Like my first note is he talks fast, right? And then
yeah,
he uses one-liners like pew 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 pew. And it's like as an observer, right? Like you don't get the time to check. You don't get to reflect
right,
on what he says, and like it kind of seems right, and then it seems like he's scoring points, but he's not.
right. Well, he's using what I call logical enchantment. I know I have to sit down and like do all the enchantments in a video, like the different types of enchantment. So the fast points, that's cognitive overload. That's a way to open you up to enchantment, right? And another mode of enchantment is logical enchantment, where you make points that sound and seem coherent and logical, even though they're not, right? Because if you had time to review, or if you had the set of facts at hand that you could validate whether or not what they're saying is true, you would realize this doesn't make any sense at all. And also, like, Sally Joe's point here, like using a fake name. And the guy's got a fake name. Okay, why, Steven? Why do you have a fake name? What are you doing? Like, why can't you identify as who you were born? Like, I don't understand and you're going to go up against other people who don't have to resort to being fake. Like you're already fake, and then your arguments are fake. And I mean, I guess if you're fake, you should use fake arguments. Maybe but also fake. Like, what what are we talking about here? And the real tragedy in all of this is that now I am forced because people on Twitter are just calling me out left, right, and center. I've never tweeted any response to anything or had a tweet with this much ridiculous, nonsensical garbage attached to it. And to be fair, half of the feedback was positive and half of it was negative, which just totally blew my mind. I was like, okay, fair enough. But now I have to defend Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes. And I'm not impressed with either of them. But but it's different to say I'm not impressed with them than say I don't understand why women like Andrew Tate. I don't understand why people listen to Nick Fuentes. If you don't understand that, you're the idiot. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Right? I don't
I,
understand why a logical, reasonable, rational person would listen to Destiny, but I haven't found any yet either. That's interesting, isn't it?
yeah, no, like I have to say, right, while I was listening, it was a lot more pleasant to listen to Andrew Tate or the Nick Fuentes guy, because like I I wouldn't have to get upset. Like it was pretty like I don't like these guys either, but it's like yeah, they're making sense. At least they're trying to be truthful, and yeah, it's just a completely different vibe.
Yeah, they were certainly making good points. A lot of what they were saying was just plain true, and a lot of what Destiny was saying is just plain false, just wrong. Some of it was correct, but he was using framing to make it sound like a negative, even though it was just factually a thing, right? Like there, a lot of these people who are in the alternative media are are Trump supporters. And like, what are you saying when you're saying that? Let's assume that that's true, and it probably is. So what? But he makes it sound derisive. He makes it sound really derisive. And I do, yes, Father Eric. I apologize. We are in fact eating out of the garbage can, but we've been left with no choice. Well, no choice. These people are so like Destiny scored all these amazing points on the evil Andrew Tate. And it's like, Andrew Tate may or may not be evil. I don't know. I don't care, actually. Like, I'm sorry. I just, like, if the guy hasn't been arrested and thrown in prison, I don't know what to tell you. Like, telling me ain't going to help. I can't arrest him and throw him in prison. I, I'm nowhere near the guy. Also, my understanding he's like 6'2", and I'm like, not. So I'm not going to go up against this guy in any way, shape, or form. And that's the problem is that what are you going to do? If the officials don't think he's doing something wrong, what are you going to do? You can be upset, I guess. You live your whole life upset. You live your whole life upset about anything if you want. Like you can do that. Yep. Use all your time, energy, attention. Be upset. That that's really really useful. I guess. I mean, not to me, but okay, knock yourself out. But where's Adam, by the way? We're supposed to have Adam here to help us because we need the youngins to contextualize some of this. And
Yes, yes.
I have to step out for 1 second because people in the world do not know how to schedule things anymore. They're probably Zoomers like Adam, who also does not know how to schedule things. I will be right back. Go ahead,
Okay.
Manuel. Give us your overview of the whole thing because you saw the whole thing, and I could only do about an hour before my head exploded.
Yeah, yeah. My head didn't explode, but when I was listening, like it started off with these like a bunch of guys who were like really upset about all of them being canceled in the social media, and they were basically blaming uh, the leftist media for having a campaign towards them where they were pushed out of sight. And Destiny, as a lefty, he didn't fall victim to that, right? So there was this tension there, and they were taking shots at each other. And like what I saw Destiny do is like he just kept interrupting people, and he was like not focusing on important points. And like they were trying to tackle an issue, and Destiny was just trying to shoot things down, right? Like, so you have a dynamic of a group of people that are trying to build an argument, and like I don't like what they were doing, but like they were trying to build an argument, and were trying to bring a case, and were trying to address grief that they had suffered. And then you had Destiny, who was making light of it in some sense, and saying, well, like, I've also been victimized, so what are you talking about? And at a certain point, even Jordan Peterson was dragged in as someone who was reinforcing that pattern. So so what Destiny kept doing to me is like he interrupted, and he kept focusing attention to irrelevant points, right? So like that's just a manipulative tactics where you're basically blowing up a smoke screen that people cannot relate to what's important anymore. And like I don't know why he's doing that, like what he's gaining from that, but like it's making this whole thing more diffuse. Um, and also, like, when he talks for himself, like he's not saying anything important. So it seems like he's taking this attitude of playing a game and has taken it into the realm of what is supposed to be a discussion, and like he keeps playing that game. And like in the end, it was so awful, because like the thing that I watched was a recording that he made, and he started playing a piano, and then his audience could no longer listen to the argument being made in the conversation. So he was just like drowning out the voice of the opposition. And obviously he himself was also not listening, right? So he created a literal bubble, like in the moment, where he had his own echo chamber, right? He could just be with his thought. He could be with his self-righteousness. He could be with his annoyance about these people that were talking about the thing that he didn't care about. And then he didn't have to participate in what was going on. And he even started complaining, can I leave yet? Can I leave yet? So like when I'm listening to these people, and like when I'm getting information there, like I see one person that's like a little kid, right? Like he's literally like a little kid, like na 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 na. And on the other hand, I see a bunch of people like that are men, and they're like stating their grievances. So yeah, and then he's appealing to the naive faith in some arguments, right? So he's making an argument around um, the people in government being good, at least in the government of the United States, because in all the other governments of the world, like the people are being evil and they're manipulating media, except in America, because I don't know, like America is special for whatever reason. And so he's got this naive faith, like I just believe this. And on the other hand, he's arguing against other people for having naive faith in other things, right? And he's just basically at the one moment he's using a standard for himself that he doesn't have to adhere to things. Okay, Adam is going to save me. And at another moment, he's using a standard uh, for other people where he's disqualifying them on the same point, so or the same move. Um, And so, like, I think what people see, and Adam can jump on in on this one, is that he's defending a fantasy, like this literally, like this fantastical worldview, right? Like, oh, the government is protecting us, like the American government is unlike any other government, and they wouldn't manipulate their own people, and like they wouldn't do this, and like the American press is the good press, and like he's just defending this narrative with like insane arguments, right? Like making comparisons that are like totally unwarranted, and yeah. So he's basically white knighting not a woman, but America or whatever, or the leftist fantasy of America. Maybe that is a better, and I think when we go back to what Mark was complaining about, right, where he's making a remark like you're not doing yourself any favors. This is what these people are seeing, and it's mostly women, right? Like these women want the state to protect them. Like they want to have trust in the state. They want to feel safe, and if the state cannot provide that to them, like that, then they're like, where are they gonna have to get their protection from? So yeah, Adam, like, where are you at?
Well, it's interesting that you point out the the kind of pattern of white knighting of this appealing, especially to women, because you need to understand Mr. Stephen Bonnell. It seems to me as though, well, you have to understand him as the person he is, and this is a man who is willfully kind of being publicly, entertaining an open marriage, whatever that is. So he kind of, talking about appealing to women. That's sort of kind of what he wants to do. On the other hand, you do have this kind of promiscuity, and that maps onto his political kind of commentary. And the easiest way to see this is when he's talking to Jordan Peterson, right? That conversation shows you a lot more about Stephen Bonnell than really any other kind of game that he game that he plays politically. And he's not just, by the way, a kind of political figure. He's also an internet figure, and so he'll show up in uh, in the kind of streamer sphere of people. So he's not kind of nailed down to one place, and to that degree, like you see basically all you need to see of him in that Peterson interview, because one of the points that one thing that happens during that is he downplays the starvation in the Soviet Union and what happened to the kulaks, and said actually the Soviet Union was it was something to the degree of like it was successful or something like that. It wasn't as bad as it was portrayed. And then I mean Peterson had to kind of take a minute and say, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? What about the gulags? And that was a moment where you saw Destiny trying to use his tricks on somebody who you know, wasn't willing to play that game, basically.
Right, and in the way, right, like in some sense, right, like Peterson almost got overruled, and like I think I heard you or Mark complain about that he did not push back on multiple things, right? And like
Yeah.
that's the way you score points, right? Like you get people not to push back, right? And if we go back to the rapid fire with one liners, yeah,
Yes.
like you can't push back on everything. Like this is the complaint that I and Mark have on a lot of people, right? Like they should be pushed back against, and they don't get the pushback, and then like, the lie just sieves through.
Right. Yeah, and that is his tactic. It is that kind of gallop of information, especially when you find him out. When you kind of find him out in the middle of the discussion. That's why when Peterson pointed that out, there was a kind of a pivot that happened there within that conversation. And I think, that this is something which is, I mean, he's not a serious kind of uh, actor in that sphere. He's kind of playing at a lot of things, being a lot of things at the same time. And so, I mean, to that degree, he's not. I mean, to that degree, he's not very impressive as things. At least to me, is not very impressive as a guy, and kind of fundamentally unserious. You see a bunch of appearances of his. I mean, look, the dude can't find Palestine on a map. Okay, there is a video of him. You can find it of him not being able to find Palestine on a map. I mean, this guy, he makes a good show of looking smart, but that's it. And to that
Yes,
degree, like it's as wide as his kind of appearances are as varied and wide as an ocean, but only as deep as a pond.
and yes, I think show is maybe the right word, and I have this note that I took down here many things, and it says acting is borrowing from a different domain, right? So you're using something, right, like a certainty or whatever, right? Like you and you're misapplying it in the moment, right? Because like you're acting out of rule, you're not acting out yourself, and so you're signaling something else than you're actually what's actually within you, and I think that's what he's doing, right? Like he's focusing on the signal, he's putting on a act, and like there what is the problem when you're acting? Well, you can't discern the truth because you're not relating to the truth, right? So if if there's a group of people like the media who's like acting out either interests or an ideology, and you have people who are seeking truth, you start comparing these two groups and you think they're the same, or at least you profess they're the same, and you don't recognize that no, like there's actually a fundamental difference in that which motivates these people, and therefore also in how reliable they are when you listen to them, right? So he makes a comparison between like 4 people on that have something on Twitter or like 100 people in media, and he say, well, the 100 people are always going to be better. Well, yeah, they're going to be better at something, but is it the truth, right? Like they're going to be better at being a media thing, and that discussion was also there. Like, what is the media doing, right? Like the one guy said, well, they're optimizing financial interests. Like I don't think they are. Like they are on some level, but like that's not what they're doing, right? They're also not conveying the the narrative of the political establishment. Like that's also not what they're doing, but they're definitely not seeking truth.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's one of the things that struck me right in the beginning of at least Destiny's YouTube stream of the Twitter space was, you know, he was saying, oh, Tucker knew that Sidney Powell was lying about the Dominion voting machines. Now, there's a lot of problems with this. First of all, it's false. Whether Sidney was lying or not might be true, but actually, if you look at court records, and most people don't because they don't look at the court records of court cases they don't know about. But there's people from Dominion who like worked on Dominion voting machines in the election saying no, they were tampered with. Like we know this. Some of them were whistleblowing their bosses. There are whistleblowers at Dominion. Like nobody knows this. I get that, but also it is publicly available information, and you could have engaged with it, right? And would you get it from the mainstream media? Probably. I don't know. I don't watch the mainstream media, but probably not. That should tell you something. And is that a bad thing? Maybe. It sort of depends. It really depends on a lot of factors. But the trick that he's using is he's saying, oh, Tucker knew, and here's a bunch of evidence, and he flashes it on the screen and takes it off. Now, if you stopped and read the evidence that he flashed on the screen, it doesn't support what he said at all. At all. He fooled you. He tricked you. He lied to you in the moment using a trick. This is a trick. It's a well-known, well-published, well-documented trick. I get it. You fell for it. I feel bad. You shouldn't have. I'm sorry he did that to you. Also, you've been victimized. Just to let you know. Flat out. And we're not accounting for that. Like he is enchanting you. I get that. People are prone to it. Everybody. Every single human I've ever met is susceptible to enchantment. Even Manuel. Not often, maybe, but it happens. I mean, people, and you don't have time to absorb who is saying what, right? Because he's flashing stuff on the screen, and some of the words match an inference that he's made, right? Or a statement that he's made, in this case, both, about what Tucker knew, whether or not he figured it out and just didn't tell anybody, and he went on the air anyway. But it didn't happen, and that's not what the emails that he showed said. It's also not what the emails said. It's also in Politico that isn't what happened. Like, so I don't even know where he's getting this from at some point. But he really is the poster child for the echo chamber. If you want to see an example of somebody trapped in an echo chamber, what it does to you mentally, that's him. Like, it's really just him. Like, you can poo-poo Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate all day long, but like, they're not big echo chamber guys. Not that
Well,
they
they
don't
can't
have
afford to
their
be.
own echo chambers, but like, compared to Stephen Bonnell, no, they're doing pretty good. Bonnell, and I think you alluded to this earlier, Manuel. What's he got? He's got his fan base on his screen while he's engaged in another activity, distracted much, and they're supporting him. Rah, rah, you go. Yeah, you tell him, right? And I think that's not good for you. It's not good. It wouldn't be good for me. Unfortunately, no one does that. It's for me. So even my friends don't like me. So, but it's not good for you to be in that echo chamber constantly. And like pegging these flashes of words to your spoken narrative, it's just a trick. It's just a nasty, vile trick that people play. And lots of people use that technique. I mean, and you don't even have to flash it, right? Because, a lot of people, they discover this, whether they know it consciously or not, it's not really relevant. They kind of discover this engagement where the engagement is, if I say something, I know you won't follow up and actually look for the truth. I know that you'll just believe it if you want to, and if you don't, you'll dismiss it for most people. So I'll just say it and move on. And people do this all the time. The New York Times is famous for this. Famous. They get caught doing this all the time. Literally all the time. Right? Where the headline says one thing and the body of the article actually refutes the headline entirely. And they do this in their op-eds, right? Like, this happens all the time. And the irony here is this is exactly what Andrew Tate is complaining about. It's exactly what Nick Fuentes is complaining about. They're saying these media people are using tricks on you. And the people who are supporting the media people and Destiny are having those tricks played on them, and they don't seem to realize that Tate is right about that. Tate's wrong about a bunch of other stuff, by the way. And Nick Fuentes is he's funny. Also, don't like his framing. And here I have to defend him because he was on pretty good behavior all in all. I mean, I've seen some of his other antics in other places. I'm not that familiar with him, but like, clearly he was on his best behavior, as was Andrew Tate. But the thing is, when you have two opponents and you bring a weak opponent who's never been strong up against somebody who can rise to the occasion, you're going to get pummeled. And it's going to have the opposite of the effect you want. Like, why are you doing this? Why did you put Andrew Tate in the spotlight? Because whether you intended to or not, that's what has happened. It's already happened. Everything I predicted in my response tweet happened. And we can complain. We can say, Mark, you called him a loser. He is a loser. He lost stuff. That's what that means. It is technically correct. You can whine about, it sounds bad and you're judging him. Yes, I'm judging him correctly for a truthful, honest thing that happened. And this is what gets lost with people like Destiny. He doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't care about the truth at all. He cares about making you feel good so that you'll agree with him and make him feel good. Because his life is a mess. And if you take 10 minutes to just listen to him closely, you'll hear all his whole life mess come out while he speaks.
Yeah, he publishes that, like, it's no secret. This is something that he talks about publicly. And when you publish yourself as a public failure, nobody ought to listen to you. But if there are people who are listening to you, they should know, yeah, this is not somebody who's worth really listening to, at all.
Yeah, and why not? Well, because if you're a failure, right, you're gonna try and make yourself seem good, right? And so you're gonna pick an example that fits your narrative, and then say, look, like, I got one example, and now my narrative is correct. And if if people believe you, you can build a following of people who believe you in, well, like in this really specific way. But the problem is, like, if something gets shaken, it all breaks. And
Right.
like this is the thing that I saw with Andrew Tate, is like he's just like sitting there and like, dude, like I'm right. Like I don't
Yeah.
you're no threat to me.
Well,
Like,
and he didn't have to defend himself because Destiny didn't attack any of Andrew Tate's points at any point in time. He didn't say you're wrong about that. He didn't do that. But one incident he did, this is like in the very beginning of his video, right? Somebody says, I don't know that at all. In other words, Destiny was claiming, you know this. And the guy said, no, I don't know that. Like, why are you speaking for me, basically, right?
Mhm.
And he says, you don't know anything. This is Destiny's claim, right? This is Steven's claim. Steven's big claim is you don't know anything. Okay. Now, that is a feminine reputation destruction tactic. Okay. That's
Right.
what it is. Okay. Let's not sugarcoat it. Right. Um, I'm not saying in the course of banter that people shouldn't engage in that because it can be quite funny if done correctly. But he was not doing it to be funny. He was doing it as a defense because he made a mistake. And his mistake was speaking for what other people know. And sometimes you can get away with that because sometimes what they know is very clear. Like you've said it before. Clearly they know it because they've said it before. You can make that case. In this wasn't an instance of that, however. This was an instance of him trying to speak for somebody to make himself look better and to make himself correct when he was clearly absolutely wrong. Just flat out, factually, nowhere near anything honest or true.
and I think that's also a thing that's really big, right? Relating to inferences, talking with inferences, right? And assuming that the other person is also doing that, right? And then
Mm.
so they were talking about starting an article with like this person said this about themselves or whatever, right? And then something gets taken out of context, right? And now you set the frame, right? Or there's an inference about who that person is and what they're going to talk about, and that means that you can dismiss a person, right? You can just
Right.
remove their relevance from the situation because you basically negated their authority to over anything. And it's like, even if that's true, like why would you do it in that way, right? You can just use the truth to negate their authority. Like if you're not using the truth to negate their authority, like what are you doing? Like you're playing a feminine game, right? And the flip side as well, right? Like, oh, someone says that, so you mean this. It's like,
Right.
that's not what they said. So like why are you saying, like, making an inference from what the person said instead of just engaging with what is in front of you?
Yeah, and that is the tactic. It's a sneaky tactic, right? Not engaging with what's in front of you, coming sideways at the argument. And I'm not saying that's always inappropriate because sometimes it can be useful, but like he never did anything else. He never brought anything to bear. And it's weird too because a lot of the time he just gets time confused. He said, "Well, how things are operating now, I mean, he said this specifically about businesses. He was like, "Oh, businesses are not operating in this way." And it's like, "Okay." And he was wrong about that. No, they actually are trying to change the world, some of them. The ones he listed all were. I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, that's just wrong." I don't know what to say about that. Like, just wrong. Like, I don't. They're out there, promoting some of the things that presumably you don't even disagree with. Um, but confusing their operation day to day. A day to day operation and a statement by a CEO are not the same thing, oddly, which is probably why we don't have the same word for them. And so you shouldn't confuse them or confuse how things are changing and moving towards the future. And operation is about today and change is about the future, right? Like you don't change today, you operate today. You change over time. Like that's the time component. And and you can do both at the same time, right? But I don't think he recognizes his own contradictions when he's speaking. Like, I think that he's just blissfully unaware, because I think that Manuel's point earlier, he's playing to the audience. He's not playing to logic, reason, and rationality. He's not playing to the truth. That's for damn sure. Like, he didn't make his truthful statement the whole conversation I heard. Not one thing he said was actually a verifiable fact. And he didn't try to validate it. He just throws stuff out and says, we know this, and this is definitely the way it is. And this, the Hunter Biden laptop didn't sound like a credible story. People bring their laptops to stores to be fixed. Well, that's totally not credible. What are you talking about? There are laptop stores that fix your laptop. Do you think they exist because no one goes there? What kind of ridiculous logic is this? Like, of course it's a credible thing. You know, it's like, it's not credible if you realize your boy Hunter Biden is guilty, and you think he's rational, and you think he figured out that his laptop would be absconded with if he didn't pay them. Yeah, in hindsight, it looks like a stupid move, but actually, it's not a stupid move at all. But also, the fact that you think it's a stupid move is an admission that you know that it's real.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't real, none of that would have, like, you wouldn't have cared. You would have been like, yeah, whatever. But you're not. You're defending him by insisting that because this is true, there's no way it happened. A ridiculous amount of hindsight bias, by the way. Like,
Right, and he's using a trick around that as well, right? He's like, oh yeah, like we all know that's a fact, therefore we can just ignore it. Like for real, like he said multiple times, like okay, like that's no news. Like can we just move on? And it's like, no, that's important. Like no, we can't move on from the thing that's important just because you don't deem it important because you're playing a different game. Because like that's the reason why it's not important. Because it's not serving his purpose.
Yeah, that's typically where he does the jump, right? So I mean, there was this whole thing about free speech, right? And he's saying he likes the US system of free speech, right? Well, he lives in the US and he benefits from it. So yeah, no kidding. Without that, you wouldn't exist at all, because you were very acerbic apparently, and like mean to people as a gamer. And it makes you sound all virtuous. I like the US way of free speech. I'm a virtuous person, right? That's what it does. But it had nothing to do with the question, right? And Elon is basing his free speech on the laws in each country, which, okay, maybe the US has the best free speech laws. That seems likely, certainly quite possible, right? But like, why did you harp on the US laws if Elon's system has nothing to do with the US laws? Right? And he outlines and holds on to basically the ideologically opposite strategy that Elon Musk outlines for Twitter, X. Like, and he doesn't notice the contradiction. Again, he has no idea, and he slipped it past everybody. He slipped it past his followers, or another word might be believers, right? The people that follow him and believe his enchantment. He slips it right past them. They don't even notice that he's done it so smoothly. They don't notice that he's basically contradicted what Elon Musk said, and said, no, we can't follow the laws in each country. Like, why not? What is your better standard? Where is this coming from? And of course, he never answers questions like that. He's asked questions like that several times in this particular conversation. Even I've seen him in other places be asked straightforward questions, and he always dodges straightforward questions. Always. He always answers a question by asking a different question, or going down an unrelated rabbit hole, or deflecting. He's the king of deflection. The absolute king of deflection.
Well, otherwise, he'd have to be held accountable. Otherwise, he'd have to be
Right.
pinned down in some way, and that would mean,
Right.
well, that it would effectively mean being a man about it, which of
Yes.
course he's not, which is exactly why he uses deflection constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really the main point. I mean, this is what it means to be a man. Like standing your ground, even, saying, yeah, and maybe I was wrong, but right, at least I stood here once. At least I stood somewhere once. And if you can't understand the attraction of other men to that stance, and you can't understand the attraction of women to that stance, the joke's on you. You're the one missing how the world works. Because what Andrew Tate does, for better or for worse, for whatever bad things he may or may not be doing, he's got a lot of followers and attention. He's got a lot of people who are interested in what he's doing and will pay attention to him and will participate with him. And I think he's got a lot more people behind him than Destiny has. And that's kind of telling. And I don't know. If you don't understand it, I don't know what you're missing, but it's real clear to me why there's a difference and what it is.
Yeah, like I wanted to call it squirmy behavior, and this been coming up a lot lately. But this idea of the action, the reaction is your true action, right? Like I feel that applies here as well, right? Like when we have the rapid fire, like in some sense he's like laying out bait, right? He's in some sense he's being absurd, and he's inviting the person in front of him to overextend, right? Like to basically like, dude, like you're being ludicrous, right? And then he can attack the other person on the return on him, and well, that serves a bunch of things, right? Because then he can be the victim because he's attacked, right? Like, and he can, well, serves a bunch of other things, right? Because like he sets the frame and blah blah blah, right? And since he's sneaky and he's inconsistent, right? Like he can turn that which he's attacked on around to his purposes, right? But I think this trying to invite a reaction, right? And like I think his audience also likes him for that. Like, look what he did to that other person, and it's like that's pretty evil. Like no, like
Yeah.
like why would you admire someone that lays out the bait, right? Like I mean, I let people walk into their own trap all the time, right? But I don't want them to be trapped. Like that's the distinction. Like I want people to relate to the truth. I don't want them to be trapped. And yes, you need to move from your position in order to, well, literally get out of your bubble. Well, because like if you keep, and I think that's literally how he sits. And like I want to move to the way that he's sitting there on his camera, right? So he's sitting there on his throne, right? And being bored or being annoyed, right? Or like literally, I'm not gonna listen to this type of things. Like he's in his bubble and he's like, come at me, come at me. It's like why is this a valid way to participate in conversation? Like
Right.
like why would you want to do this? Like why would and it's like, well, like yeah, well, loser under threat comes back to mind. Like he's like why would you need to lift yourself up? Because else you'd fall down. Like that's the only reason.
Right. Well, and I want to point out something. I mean, I think that it's one of the great sort of tricks that communism plays on you, right? It sort of invites you into a world where you don't need government, where you don't need that power coming from above, right? You don't need it. And I think that obviously that's wrong. You kind of do. Like somebody has to take care of the commons. That's why the tragedy of the commons exists, and it's just a stupid problem because It only exists if you assume no government. If you assume government, Treasury Commons goes away, right? It's sort of a tell, like why communism can never work, because they tell you a fundamental lie. There's no power, right? All the power's at the bottom or something, and no one needs to direct the power. Well, everyone has power and directs power in some sense. See a navigating pattern, see my video on power. You'll understand the definition better, or a more useful definition or something. You luring somebody in the way that you described, Manuel, that's a form of power. You're moving the world, right? And if you can't move the world by being 6'2" and knowing how to fight, right, or being persuasive by your actual points that you make, which Destiny's not persuasive by the points he's making, that's for sure. He might be persuasive by his logical enchantment. He might be persuasive by his, feminine demeanor or whatever. There's a dozen other things, perhaps, but he's not persuasive on the points he's making. But most of them are just factually incorrect, for example. So it can't be that. He's not persuasive on the basis of the truth. That's for sure. Then you can move the world by forcing somebody into a situation where they have to respond, right, rather than actually doing something useful, which I think is part of, we'll say part of his charm, right? How is this viewed, Adam, with these guys? Because I don't know Nick Fuentes that well. I don't know Andrew Tate that well, honestly.
Well, there were a couple guys in that stream that were of interest. So Andrew Tate, and there's another guy called Myron Gaines there, who runs what's called the Fresh and Fit podcast. And that's basically a podcast that goes over kind of basically sex dynamics, right? Dynamics between men and women within the modern world. And so a lot of these guys are really kind of making descriptions about the relations between the sexes, and on account of that, really drawing the ire of somebody like Destiny, who really wants to kind of live, I guess, in a world where, if there are distinctions between the sexes, it's just merely a matter of convention rather than a matter of reality. That's why, for instance, he can entertain an open marriage like this kind of fake kind of thing, because he doesn't want the responsibility, for instance, of being a father, because actually, and this is public record, he is a father to one child who he admitted in public he doesn't even have a good relationship with, right? So this kind of avoidance within conversation also kind of ripples out into an avoidance of kind of boundaries, even to the level of kind of sex dynamics. And so that's why I think, to a large degree, there is a kind of hostility between him, Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, and there are a couple other people on that Twitter space with a similar sort of mindset, and Destiny doesn't really oppose them directly. He has to resort to this deflection, because if he really did face anything that these people are saying head on, he wouldn't be able to really stand up against it effectively.
Yeah, there's something sort of unique about gamer culture, right? Because you have the rise of guys like Destiny, who was just basically in the right place at the right time. He doesn't have any other qualities that stand out to me, right? And then you've got, Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, right? Who does what? He has these arguments online with people in various forums, but he's particularly a gamer, right? And then is, indicated, hey, you should read this book, you should look into this thing. And he does, right? And then he spreads his knowledge through his YouTube channel, specifically, right? Ancient Recitations channel, right? Talking about culture, things like that. These are all things that Destiny doesn't do markedly, right? And so you see this sort of bifurcation, this split, right, between we'll say the people who actually care about making their culture better, right? And the people who are just trying to make a point about the culture or trying to tear down one specific part of it and alone and sort of isolate one part from the other, right? Why I don't really pretend to understand. I do think honestly, not to denigrate anybody, but like some people aren't that bright. A lot of people seem bright and aren't bright. And look, I applied this to guys like Sam Harris, and I make a good case for that in 2 different videos on navigating patterns. Watch those videos, right? Like there's a there. Like there's something going on. And there's a market difference between the likes of Carl Benjamin, who now it's coming out in, support of Andrew Tate. I was like, oh, this is not like I'm not happy about that either, but
Right.
I can't support Destiny. Like, that's for sure. So what do you think of that, Adam? These sort of two pals, or are there more than two? Like I'm not in that milieu quite as well as you are, obviously.
Yeah, well, I mean, Destiny. I said this earlier, but Destiny is really a guy with a finger in many pies, as it were. He starts out as a gamer, but then he ends up in this kind of streaming sphere. I think he really does he does kind of represent a kind of path that is kind of avoidant, is not very is I mean effectively is not very intellectual in its outlook, but is really basing itself entirely around pleasure. Whereas if you look at men like Sargon of Akkad, I mean, if you look at there are other figures like this, there who kind of grow out of, as it were, or grow into something bigger outside of gaming, and that they end up getting into. I mean, it might seem on the outset that Destiny is one of these people, but fundamentally, he's still playing a game. He's just playing the game of trapping people, trying to lay these traps, set them for them. Somebody like Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, or I think there are a couple other. I can't remember streamers off the top of my head, but there are a couple other people in that sort of space who actually end up doing something completely different. And there's a kind of growth there. Whereas I think if you look at somebody like Destiny, there is no growth. There is no kind of progress in a positive direction. It really is just a kind of slow dilapidation. I mean, to be fair, when you sent me the link to this stream, for me, Destiny as a character kind of just lost any sort of credibility even a couple of months ago because of again all of the public controversy surrounding his open marriage. But even like he strikes me even at this moment as a kind of utterly kind of broken and defeated man. And the fact that people still listen to him, I think that's unfortunate, but also it's a reflection of the world around us. I think certainly that stream with Andrew Tate and all of the other people, Nick Fuentes, Myron Gaines, a couple other guys as well. Sneeko. Oh, actually, it's important to mention about Sneeko because I think he's a former gamer as well, actually, and a singer. He's a musical artist. That's true.
Yeah.
And so, Destiny is kind of surrounded by these guys who have, as it were, a kind of real success. Like Myron Gaines comes from the military, then sets up his podcast, kind of has a couple businesses going. You have Andrew Tate, again, similar sort of deal. He's a MMA fighter. You have who else is there?
Krasenstein.
Right, exactly. So you have all of these people who actually do have a kind of tangible success, and then you have kind of Destiny in the middle of it. And who is he? What is he representing? What is he arguing for? And it really is kind of it's a nothing position, and he really is still playing games. He's not he's not even playing like a serious political game either. He's just a pundit. Unlike a couple other guys there, it's like this is just not. It's just not on the table. So to that degree, I mean, Destiny is somewhat of it's a very tragic character because I don't really see a future for him anywhere. certainly after that Twitter space, but even beforehand, I mean, it was very much not even not even kind of in the front of my mind as a character, and it's really is sort of tragic situation he's in, but also well, he's doing the evil, so you know what, the tragedy befalls those who do evil eventually, I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's interesting how these people who are streaming, because I've watched a lot of streams, way too much for my good, but yeah, like these people, right? Like they're my age, right? Like I'm of the generation of the people that were starting to stream, right? And they're now growing old, right? Like they're not that good anymore. Like it's like you
Right.
get old, your reflexes die down, all that stuff. And like, are you gonna appeal to the younger generation? Because like who's your audience, right? Like they're gonna go with the hip people. Like they're not gonna go with you. So and you become older, right? So like your interests are gonna change. Like you still playing that children's game? Like, hey bro, like knock knock knock. Like do you want to get out of your house? Like God's calling Abraham there. Like it's like get out, start moving into the world there, and, and so there's something there where there's this identity crisis, and we also have to realize that these people, they end up talking. They talk to their audience. That's their profession. But
Right.
but they're shit talking most of the time, right? Like it's not really serious. And then like you get a character like Destiny who evolves into a more mature space, right? He gets to play with the big boys, and well, I just got the screen open. It's like this is his chat, right? So this is Twitch, I think. Um, Shadow Wizard Money Gang. We love casting spells. Destiny, stop letting him talk over you, fish face, or whatever that is. So like that's the thing that he's referencing. Like I don't know how many times he checks his chat, but like when you play a game, like the thing that you learn is you need to check the mini map, right? Like
Yeah.
chat's
Yeah.
like a mini map. It's like
Right. Right. No,
so
that's a good point. But I mean, they're still stuck in gaming land, right? They're still stuck gaming and playing and pretending they're stuck in their fantasy because gaming is a fantasy exercise. It's not an exercise that helps you with the real world at all. The more I see, the more I look into it, the more I'm like, maybe games are appropriate until you're like 10 or 12. And then maybe online games in particular and whatnot, video games in general are not, not your thing, like maybe there's no good to be had from them past a certain point. And kind of see this with the campus guys who cut up um, pieces of garbage can and like went after the police barricade and utterly failed, right? They clearly have a fantasy in their head that they're playing out because they think the world works like a video game. And then they get involved in these, so-called debates, but they don't debate. They don't have the skills of a debate. I've seen a couple of quote debates with Destiny, and he never takes a stance on anything. And it's like in order to debate, technically speaking, a technical debate, you have to take a stance, and then the other person is supposed to approach that stance, maybe attack that stance, and then you're supposed to attack their stance. And I've never seen Destiny do that on either side. I've never seen him correctly attack a stance. He always seems to come at things by the side, and I've never seen him take a stance. And it's kind of interesting because in that particular conversation, you've got Fuentes who's making a point about narrative framing and the way he, in particular, is treated. And, that's a good point. Like Fuentes seems to be being treated unfairly. It's a typical unfair treatment by the mainstream media in particular. Although it's not exclusive to the mainstream media. A lot of people use narrative framing. Tim Pool used to use the example all the time early on when he was sort of coming up in the ranks, where he said, when did you stop beating your wife? Like, that's framing, right? You've already baked the assumption into the question, and they do that to Nick Fuentes, maybe unfairly, or it seems unfair to me anyway. Um, and no, the left doesn't acknowledge that bias, right? And Destiny didn't. And this is part of the problem. Destiny has no charity, no empathy, no sympathy, and no caring one whit for anyone else in that conversation. He never concedes a point and says, you know what, you're right about that. And that's a big problem if you're picking this guy as your champion against somebody like Andrew Tate, who seems gracious by comparison. And you pick a bad guy. The really bad guys, if they are really bad, are going to seem gracious. That's not good for your point, And maybe this is a point for people on the left. People on the left are completely transparent when they're on the left. Maybe some people can't see it, but boy, a lot of us can tell. Definitely on the left. It's not that hard, right? And it's really easy too to tell when somebody's holding onto an ideological position. For some people don't see it. It was clear with Stephen that he's holding onto an ideological position. Because if he had a point, if he had a fact to bring to bear to back up his claims, he'd make it. But he never did that. He never did that at all in this whole conversation. And you can say what you want about Nick Fuentes or Andrew Tate, they have been unfairly maligned. And maybe you think that's okay because they've committed some other worse crimes, but first of all, bring me the evidence, because I ain't seen it. Everyone whines about Andrew Tate and tells me all these horrible things, but evidence is really thin, guys. I got to tell you, really thin. And I got way more evidence on a lot of other people, and no one cares. No one cares. So, I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't know why, and he's an insincere debater too, because he just free speech arguments are boring and dishonest. What? How is an argument about free speech boring and dishonest? And that's okay. Make a non-boring and dishonest argument. But he's not doing that. And he's not even proving his point. He just talks about being banned instead for something that he honestly believes. And then he goes into a narrative, a false narrative. He just makes up a story, a clearly false story, right? That has nothing to do with the question that was asked. And he's doing this all on the basis that free speech arguments are boring and dishonest. I don't know how a free speech argument can be dishonest. Maybe the person making it is making a dishonest argument, but bring the goods. I'm sure people do that. But you got to prove it. You can't just throw that out there, right? That's not cool. It's not a debate either, right? If you just say something and state it tautologically, you're not debating.
Well, I wanna go back to the chat thing, right? Because I scrolled through the video a little bit, and the chat is on the side, and what do I see? It's all one line. It's worse than Twitter, right? So just imagine that for what is it now, 10, 15 years, you just keep getting one-liners, right? And then they get copy pasted, right? So they draw in your attention. So, and now you're talking, you get feedback. We get feedback, right? Get feedback in one line.
Yeah.
What is the method of reasoning that you're gonna apply, right? You're gonna apply one line is sufficient for me to communicate a message. It's no, it's not. Even if you're right, I need to be able to understand you, right? People don't seem to understand it. The reason that you communicate is so that I can make the connections that you're making, not
right
to show that you're right or whatever.
Right.
And so if
Exactly.
you don't provide the other person the ability to make connections, how do you know that you have the ability to make the connections?
Exactly. Well, then that's what he never proves, right? He never proves the connections of his points. To your earlier point, right in the beginning, he talks very fast and it sounds logical. But if you stopped at any point, which I did many times in the conversation, and went through what he said. It wasn't logical, and he was lying, just flat out stating falsities. Not all of them, but almost all of them for real. If you've got a bet on whether or not any given thing that Stephen is saying is true, always bet that it's not, and you will be so far ahead of the game. It will be great. By the way, thank you, Bruce. It's good to see you, sir. Yeah, I just listened to some of the comic book references. Nightmarish manifestation of the Twitter bathroom wall and audio, and some of that comes from Clubhouse. A lot of the Twitter Spaces thing, I mean, Twitter Spaces comes from the success of Clubhouse, which is now pretty much more or less dead, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those people sort of came over from that, and there was a lot of fantasy projection on Clubhouse. Let me tell you, a lot of people were just like making up. It was well known. People did rooms about the rooms that were in bad faith, right? And, oh wait, why is it that Americans hate black people? Like they had room titles like that on Clubhouse, which is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, right? What? Why are black Americans, slave lovers? And yeah, they would do very, very, incendiary titles in Clubhouse on purpose, and they'd have pretty big rooms, but they would be, hauler fests. And Twitter Spaces, for as bad as it is a lot better than that on average. But I mean, Nick at one point, he points out that Destiny's tone, it matters, and Destiny's tone is one of seriousness. And I get that it's like attractive to people. Like I understand he's being very serious about the fantasy, and it is a fantasy that he's telling. Stephen's telling you a fantasy, and he's trying to get you to believe it, right? And his tone is conveying that to you, because you're moved by that, and you're moved by that much more than the actual words spoken. And that's unfortunate, right? Because you can be enchanted very easily by that, and people are all the time, and they're like, welcome to the human race, right? I don't know anybody who doesn't fall into that. I've met MIT physics professors who were convinced by smooth talkers with no physics degree that some ridiculous theory that isn't even a theory was true. And it took them a very long time, in some case months, to figure out they'd been bamboozled. That happens to people. That happens to you. And you need to watch out for that. And Stephen's one of those enchanters. He's a sorcerer that does that. So I want to demystify him to some extent, right? Dispel the facade, right? Because it is a facade with him. He doesn't believe any of the things he's saying. He doesn't care about any of the things he's saying. He doesn't care about any of the people around him. He's very self-absorbed. I like Manuel's point about you're getting one-line feedback all the time, over and over and over again. And that reciprocally narrows you, to use a little fancy John Vervaeke language, right? That narrows your scope. It narrows what you can talk about and how you can talk about it. It's just not good for you in general, in the same way that Twitter isn't good for you necessarily, right? It's the same
Yes,
problem.
I can confirm about the badness of Twitter, right? And at a certain point, he's talking about, well, there's two truths, and it's like, well, is there only two, right? And also, are they truths? Like,
Right,
because that's what's going on, right? Like what do you mean there's two? Like
right,
what I literally what I think is going on, and I think this is going on in every arena. There's a feminine modality and a masculine modality, and like that's just it. And the masculine modality prefers truth, and the feminine modality prefers peace and appeasement as a consequence of peace, right? And it prefers security, but not security in truth, which is like really weird, right? Like it prefers a security of a sense of safety.
right,
And so
right,
everything that is threatening, like Andrew Tate, is a threat, like it to the worldview. And
right,
I think this is the thing that Destiny plays with. And to go back to the white knighting, right? Like he's breaking a lance for the safety, for the, oh, look at these alt-right people who are severely threatening and doing all of these crazy things, and they're allowed to do them, but not to you, because I have a safe space for you. And like I don't understand why people otherwise would feel attracted to Destiny, because we have to remember, right? Like there's a third option. You can just not like anybody in that conversation.
Right. Well, and it's right. The problem for me is I've been dragged into this thing effectively where, I mean, I have to choose the lesser of two evils, and everybody thinks the lesser of two evils happens to be Steven. And I'm like, there's no way that's true. I'm just sorry, but that's not you're on the wrong side if that's your game. I don't like that game. I would prefer something that's not Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, or Steven. But I'm stuck with this, right? I'm stuck in this because of the nature of Twitter, because of the nature of people putting everything into binaries. Talked about that on Navigating Patterns multiple times. The binary frames are bad, right? Like there's no reason for this. There's no reason for this. And Bruce, welcome. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks. Nice to see you guys. I agree with that. I hate that I am given this option. But like my dad always says, you order crap, you get crap. And so like we have built this. I hate to say it, but like, and the thing that's interesting is there really is two sides of this coin. Very similar audience on both sides. The fans of both of these people are on the other side of the coins. Now, you could argue whether or not one has more sense than the other, but they're very similar crew. And so we're really just, it's like watching a horrible car crash sometimes. And I wonder how many people that are engaging are just into the sort of pornographic nature of it, to use a bad word, but it's sort of like a voyeuristic, strange experiment that we're watching.
Well, like I want to extend on that, because like I'm looking at the crazy protests coming to the Netherlands, right? And it like they're role playing defending Gaza, literally, right? Like they're
Right.
literally thinking that they're fighting a war in the Netherlands that is serving Gaza in some way, right? So this, and then there's the whole audience thing going on as well, right? And it's so absurd. Like there's so much role playing going on, and well, what is it like it's fanboyism, which is
Right.
also the thing that's coming
LARPing.
from the streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens
LARPing.
all over.
It's gaming, and it's worse, right? As I point out in my Lie of Plato's Cave video on Navigating Patterns, like watch that video. Like it's really a framing problem, and it's a framing problem that goes all the way back to Joseph Campbell, and I'll be talking about that more too. This hero's journey nonsense, where Campbell deliberately puts the hero's journey as a single hero, and I'm like, what myths are you reading, bro? Like, where did you get that from? That's nowhere until a certain time period, right? There are no individual heroes in the Iliad. There's no single hero in the Odyssey. Were you high? What are you smoking? Jason and the Argonauts? Like, where are you getting this hero's journey from? Where there's one guy? There's no one guy. There's no one guy in the Greek myths. What are you on about? Like, where are you getting this from? But with video game culture, it is. There's just two sides, right? Like you're gonna fight the boss, and he has all these minions, and the thing is, you're overcoming the odds, and just like these idiots, cutting up garbage cans and wearing them as armor to go up against riot police, like that's gonna work. Like, I mean, they're living in a fantasy, and Steven does a wonderful job with his fantasy named Destiny of living in his fantasy, where there's something destined about him, or like he is the destiny, whatever kind of crap you want to plug into it. Because a term like destiny allows you to project psychologically whatever you want into it, right? Whatever your heart and tells you, whatever dreams you have, whatever aspirations you want, whatever you need in the moment, right? That's part of your destiny. And it's there. It's in this guy, Steven, because he called himself a different name. And that's what I mean by dispelling the facade. This is a psychological trick for real. Like, there are books about this, like whole books about this trick, this self-naming garbage that is invalid in the world, by the way. And I get that you fell for it. People fall for things like tone. You can speak the same words, and they can evoke laughter or anger. Same word, same sentence, just by changing the tone. Don't believe me? What do you think sarcasm is?
Yeah.
What is sarcasm? Sarcasm is making a statement where your tone conflicts with the statement you made, and that's funny because conflict can be funny. People don't think about that, but that's true. And that's the problem. When you're living out your destiny, you're in your fantasy. You're disassociated from reality as such. And like sometimes you have to disassociate from reality. Sure, absolutely. I get that. Like, but you can't do it too much. And when your stage name is Destiny, because your real name is Steven and you don't want to use it because it's like too boring or something, you have that problem, and you're being moved by him, not just the name, but also the name. You're being moved by his tone. You're being moved by his, super tricky way of deflection. Because every time he's asked a direct question, every single time, a clear question, he changes it up, makes it about himself, claims a morally superior position, right? Without saying it, really, right? And the audience is moved. And I'm like, why are you moved by this trick? And like, fair enough, like you're enchanted, but like you better get on that. Like, you don't want people to be able to enchant you in that way that easily, especially not when they already have a fake name. Like, how many hints do you need? That you got to be careful around this kind of guy.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it, because I'd always assumed that he was just lazy and created a name based on the game Destiny.
No. I don't think
it's
that
just
is true.
stupid, but just even worse, I guess. I don't know what, but that's an interesting point, and that would be why people could project on it, use it, identify with it. Whatever you want to say.
However, he came to it, right?
Yeah,
like a lot of people assume like he knew all along, and he would. No, probably not. I mean, first of all, not him for sure, because like he can't think 2 steps ahead. That's abundantly clear. He can't even remember what he said like 3 words ago. He gets himself into verbal trouble all the time, and sometimes he weasels out of it, which is really fun to watch. At least unconsciously, he notices. I don't know how conscious or how rational he is about it, or how conscious he is about it. But he unconsciously, you can hear him when he gets in trouble, weasel his way out. These things are very hard to catch. I do not expect people.
Well,
to be able to
maybe
catch
that's it, right? Like all of these people, they're stuck in the same place, right? Like, so Mark, you were talking about claiming a morally superior position, right? Which is basically claiming a high ground. Well, if you recognize that high ground, right, you will go there with him.
Right.
And then it's like, well, if you are on that high ground, maybe there's only a select few ways that you can defend the high ground, and you recognize the way that he's defending the high ground, so he's doing the right things, right? Like the moral things, because like it's high and you're defending it, so like he must be a moral person. Like that has to be true from that perspective. And like I want to go a little bit back to the stories, right? Like what happened? The round table, right? The table that you sit around with people, where you have collective sense making, has been exchanged by a desk and Twitch chat.
Oh, I didn't even see that. No, that's good.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
one person sitting at a desk.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's
when they're at a table, what do you get? You get a camera angle at one person at a time.
Yeah.
You never see the people in communion. Like Joe Rogan, like I like Joe Rogan's podcast, some of them
Side
anyway.
angle, both of them.
You get side angle. You very rarely see all the people together around the table, and that's actually a marked difference. So if you watch something like the Daily Wire special that Jordan Peterson did, you see everybody around the table a few times. Like you see two people at once. You see that they're interacting in a room together, and that's better, right? Because that's we can't do it. Unfortunately, Bruce lives a few states away. Manuel, unfortunately, is on the wrong side of the world for some odd reason, and so we can't be together.
There's no sides to the world, Mark.
There's only two sides to the world. You're on the wrong one.
Right.
Binary, damn it.
Well, I can't take this anti-globalism. This is
the flat.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah, total flat. Yeah.
But we don't get that sense for people are sometimes together in person. People are interacting together. People are getting together in spaces. Right. I was just at the Symbolic World Summit. It was wonderful. If you want to see a video of that, that's got over 1,000 views already. Thank you everybody for watching it. We did a nice summary. Right. Adam was there. Sally Joe was there with me. Father Eric was there. We had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful time talking about it. We met our friend from Germany there, Martin. It was wonderful. And thank you, Lynn, by the way. Nice to see you. So glad you're joining us. The problem with things like Destiny is that the way they engage with this guy is as a serious actor. And he's clearly not. Steven is not a serious actor. He's not even using a serious name. And what chance do you have against Nick Fuentes? Who is this guy? Oh, his name is Nick. I know his last name too. I could look up his address if I really cared. Andrew Tate. These are real men being real and just out there saying like, this is my name. This is who I am. I own this for better or for worse. And again, like, well, why do women date drug dealers? Well, if you don't know, the joke's on you. It's rather clear to me why that happens. I don't like it.
But also like talking about free drugs, right? Like the thing that happens on Joe Rogan, like they smoke together, they drink together. Like there's more than just being at the same table, right? And like I watched this Dutch show, and they're also sitting on the same table, right? And then they have things in the room that they reference, like over several episodes, right? Like so there's also a relationality that comes in, and then people come into a place that has meaning, right? Like it has a history, and then like they had a plant, and then they were going to sell the plant because like it couldn't fit in the room anymore. Like this is a completely different thing than just being in like an act space, right? And then like having people complain about who's invited to the act space.
Yeah, it's even worse where there's no it's so in debate, which this isn't a debate, it's a stupid term. There's usually a sort of performative nature to it with also a mutual respect. And that respect is given and taken because of the physical space. Usually, you can do that nuance. But now this is being called a debate. It's entirely virtual. Nobody has anything on the line, right? Destiny has even less on the line because he's a pseudonym, essentially a floating head who's just parroting particular points from, I would say, left of center aisle. And these other guys are as open as they possibly can be without being doxxed, killed, or otherwise, deported, which I guess maybe they have been. I'm not defending Fuentes or Tate per se, but to be fair, they have a little more on the line. But this whole forum of anonymity, essentially, and yelling at one another and calling it a debate, it's very it's sort of sinister and almost evil.
Right. No, it is.
Me,
it's the corruption of a term. It's a misused word in essence.
I don't like it at all. Yeah.
No, I mean, a debate is supposed to be one person taking a stance and the other person taking a stance, and then each of them trying to poke holes in that stance. And the thing is, I've seen Destiny in many debates. He's never taken a stance on anything once.
Yeah.
And that may be out there. I don't watch all his content, but I kind of doubt it because he's a little weak. And he like just when he makes a statement, he usually backs off of it. And I mean, he keeps trying to put things in political frames when it's convenient for him, and then things that he doesn't want to be in the political frame, he just conveniently pulls out, right? And he asserts his authority, right, revealing his sort of tyrannical nature, like I'm on the side of free speech, but he's being sneaky about it. Like he's not saying I'm on the side of free speech, I support Elon Musk. He's actually saying quite the opposite, right? Because it's not getting the results that he wants. Not that Elon Musk's free speech stance is out of alignment with what he said. Steven said the same free speech stance that Elon Musk said, but he made it sound like he was against it. It's very sneaky. And I'm not a fan of the sneaky. Like that's not cool. Yeah. Right. It's beware sharing gifts.
But it's also like the format was really weird because like they were like trying to find things that were outside of the bounds of free speech and inviting people to do that. Like it's like we like Bruce, you were saying some sort of porn thing, right? Like there's a sensation seeking nature in transgressing the norm, right? Like they were actively seeking to transgress in order to venerate the transgression. And it's like, what are you guys doing? And Destiny like capitalized on that. And it's like, well, yeah, like what you're saying isn't extreme enough, so I'm not going to engage with it. It's like, really?
Yeah. Boring. He called it boring. These free speech conversations are boring and dishonest.
Yeah, this is boring. Okay. It's boring. This is the thing. He's disingenuous in that. It's not boring. Okay, you're streaming it, okay, to everyone and staying there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a child. It's childish.
Sneaky.
And if it's sneaky and childish. If my child did that, he'd be reprimanded. You see, it's insane. Like he's not had a dad. Okay, like you know what I mean. Like this kid needs a smack or something. Like it's very strange. And I think he's older than I am, which is really frustrating. Right? This is the whole sort of Tate's also kind of a child, but that's in a different spectrum. But it's very childish to just do like yawn. This is boring. Like what is that? It's crazy to me that people find this person compelling.
Well, no, Tate is not a child. He's immature. That's like he's not a child.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's a distinction there.
Yeah, no, I literally think that you're right. Like they're stuck in different developmental stages.
It sort of feels that way. I'm not trying to claim that I'm the most mature, well-grounded person in the world, but compared to this nature of discussion, it does not come across well.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, Steven's making strange claims about people being disingenuous. He says, and this is about 21 minutes into his video on his channel, right? Nobody will present what it is they actually believe. How do you even have access to know that, right? Like at some point you're just playing God and assuming that you know something, right? And
or you're projecting, because I think we need to recognize that when people say other people aren't doing this, that's because they're not doing it.
Right. Oh no, for sure. I mean, like I said, he never made a statement he stood on the whole time.
If someone comes into a conversation and it's like these people are not doing this, right? Then, like, first of all, if you give people the opportunity to do something and then they're not doing it, then you can call them out. But if you preemptively say they're not doing this, there's an implication, and I'm going to do it, and I think it's justified at this point, that therefore it's okay that you're not doing it. And you're going into the conversation withholding something that you're not certain that the other person is withholding.
Right. Well, and the thing is too, he says nobody will present what it is they actually believe, right? He says that up front, but he's already accused people of believing what they say, right? Out of context, of course, because that's his trick, right? But which is it? And people don't catch that. And like, fair enough. Like, I get that people don't catch things like that. But also that happened. This is 21 minutes still, right? And the thing is, he's saying this as though he has access to some type of forbidden knowledge. He's claiming that he knows that somebody else is being disingenuous, which implies a whole bunch of knowledge on his part.
It does.
Right? And it's knowledge, quite honestly, that he cannot have. Right. And I'll go into that in a second. But that's the Gnosticism. He's claiming forbidden knowledge of whether or not people are being honest or dishonest in their belief, even though he's already contradicted that claim previously, right? And the problem is that pretty much the reason why you can't have a debate with him and the reason why he doesn't bring up facts is because they're just technically, I'm just speaking technically, from a standpoint of time, he can't have researched any of this stuff. Because he spends his day gaming, according to him. I'm just going by what he tells me. I'm not claiming forbidden knowledge. I'm claiming he tells me he games 8 to 10 plus hours a day. Fair. That's fine. And you go, well, Mark, you're streaming right now. You can probably, I researched stuff when I was young, and still continue to do so. By the way, I spent 4.5 hours going through an hour of his ridiculous video and looking stuff up and cross-referencing. And I can guarantee you one thing. This Steven guy has never cross-referenced a thing in his life. I don't even think he knows what that is. And I'm not saying that to like be mean to him, but like seriously, guys, like if you listen closely and you slow him down and you break down what he's saying, you're going to realize real quick he's not consistent at all. At all. He can't stick to the same level of analysis for more than like 10 seconds. He has to deflect. He has to confuse the general for the specific or the specific for the general the minute he gets caught being wrong about something. A lot of times in this conversation, he was admitting to things and then saying, yes, but the New York Times. And it's like, okay, so the New York Times got through the net of the CIA cover-up, whatever. Like, what are you saying? Like, you've admitted that Tate is right. You've made him look good, whether you realize it or not, Stephen. And now I have
to
support
Nick look
the
great,
guy, even though I don't want him.
Yeah, he made Nick look great. I had to. There was some time where I found myself agreeing in some sense with Destiny's point, with the way that the rhetoric was being said. But then I think Nick looked perfect in the exchange there, and so did Tate, because Destiny had no receipts.
Yes.
Right. I mean, right. Destiny is using a sort of I'm not a logistician. Is that the term? Logistician. But he's using like a strange version of like generalities, or what people might prefer to as like common sense logic or something like that, and sort of assuming the most likely and then asserting that as absolutely. And I'm not
universalizing it, right? Like he's taking a specific and he's universalizing it,
right.
And then sometimes he does the opposite. He's taking a universal and therefore discounting the specific. And it's like, well, like the universal doesn't disprove any specific thing.
That's the confusing the specific for the general and the general for the specific.
Very tricky.
And the thing is, it's hard to catch. I don't want to say like, oh, you didn't catch it, you're stupid. You're not. But also because and it's not just him. Steven's not the only one doing this, guys. Lots of people do this to you all the time, and it's hard to catch because right now we're in this phase of rebellion where people very much want to knock people down because they don't like success. Some people hate success. I learned that from Joey. Thank you, Joey. Some people just hate success and they just want to knock people down because then they don't have to be better. At the end of the day, they don't have to be better. If I knock everybody down to my level, I don't have to rise to the occasion at all. There's no occasion to rise to because we're all down here in the sewer. Unfortunately, you're in the sewer. So, like, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Andrew Tate at least wants to drag you up. And maybe he wants to do it through horrific means that I disagree with on moral grounds, but at least he wants to drag you up.
And I think we have to bring in, right? Like, because I think it's important to realize, okay, like this pattern also happens on the national level, right? Like, like, well, we like America cannot have failures because then we'd have to fix them. Oh,
True.
how
Yeah, you're right.
horrible! Like for real. Like I can't have any failures because then I'd have to fix them. And so like
Right.
there's this level of confusion where this and we've been talking about this in relation to Ukraine, right? Like why is it so horrible that Ukraine gets attacked? Well, because now Ukraine can't self-determine. And if Ukraine can't self-determine, that means a whole bunch for self-determination as such, also applying to yourself,
Right.
right? Because like if your neighbor can move onto your lawn and say, "Hey neighbor, like this has got to stop." Because like if you're gonna do it once more, like things are gonna
Right.
happen.
But you can't self-name. You can't call yourself Destiny in a stream because you're a fantasy character, right? Like you
Yeah.
can't do that. So of course you want to defend Ukraine's right to self-determination. I agree, and it is, to avoid the responsibility in general, and the responsibility to the truth, the responsibility to being honest to yourself, even, right? And not, I mean, that's how you avoid psychological projection. You're honest with yourself, you won't psychologically project. I have more on that coming, by the way. I did a wonderful conversation with Catherine on the intimacy crisis part 2. So we're going to talk about that there. There's a lot of projection going on, and Stephen in particular projects a lot. A lot of what he does is he just says that, oh, Nick Fuentes said this, and he didn't. Like I went back and checked. No, Nick didn't say that at all. Like at all. Like you couldn't. That's not a misinterpretation. That's a fantasy projection. But of course, his audience thinks he's great and can do no wrong, and he lied. Simple as.
I'm not even sure. Yeah, I actually would assert that I don't. And maybe this is some hidden knowledge, I suppose. But I don't think that they have the capacity of being loyal to a person like a Destiny. I think they just like what he identifies against. I don't even think they actually like him, but he parrots for them what they want to see.
Right. Right. But this is you probably didn't see it. He's the ultimate echo chamber. Like if you want to know what an echo chamber is, you look him up. He is like trapped in an echo chamber 24/7. He just he doesn't have any thoughts of his own. He doesn't reason from any of his own propositions at all. Like he just doesn't, and that's why he keeps making statements that are demonstrably false that you could Google. Like one of the things he was saying was he was going into this, he basically made this binary, right? There's the people in the mainstream media, and then there's the alternative media, as though there's just two groups, and they're the same or something. And he said, all you people, right? And he was referring to presumably the other people in the Twitter space with him who he didn't like or something. You all believe that all the charges against Trump are false, and that vaccines don't work, and that
Russia should have invaded Ukraine.
The vaccine was made in a bioweapons lab, right? And then what do I see? What do I see come across my Twitter thing? Like as I'm watching this video, literally as I'm watching this section of the video, Congress figures out that in fact there's a lot of evidence that this was born in a lab. Oh, really? What kind of lab was it, I wonder? Like, what are you going to claim? There's a lab that investigates viri that isn't a bioweapons lab? Is there some other kind of lab that would do that work? Is that going to be your claim?
And that's not even the real issue here. The issue is it was verifiably false, according to the mainstream media initially, that it came out of a lab at all of any kind. Right. So now you've moved it. Okay. No, it's bioweapons. So let's just make it very specific. And claim and make the straw man, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's very good. It's clever straw manning. Like if you want, like if there were like an Olympics gold medal for straw manning, gold medal, Stephen. There's your gold medal. You want a little star on your forehead,
right?
That's about where we're at with you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Like I don't, and it's bizarre because he just casts people as bad people. He doesn't back it up with any. He just and he does it through implication. It's all sneaky, right? He's not man enough.
Like takes man enough. Magic dust upon you, and now you're tainted.
It's the levels of enchantment this guy. But I think really, and I did note this earlier, right? Like at the end of the day, what's really going on here is that he's a flag. He's a rallying point for people with the same ideas. This is
And
part
also
of the
for the
echo chamber
other.
thing.
And also for the other, though, because in
Right.
my experience, I saw this about a couple of years ago once he started getting paraded onto these platforms. And I was like, this is very strange. It's almost like people are looking for a whipping boy on the right side of the aisle. Bring him on. But get this guy, bring him out, get him out of his sticky Doritos chair, okay, and put him here so that we can beat him up, right? And even if he's smarter than us or maybe not smarter than us, we'll just put him as the opposition and burn him in effigy toward the Republican side of the aisle. And just
Right.
this is the man that you need to hate. These are the people. He's going to be that archetype. And I just kept seeing paraded out there, and he just willingly going. And I was like, it's actually kind of a genius exit strategy. Maybe if I become a retard liberal and just parrot and then get everyone to hate me so they get put onto right-wing talk shows and pundits or podcasts, get paid 10 grand a pop, I'll retire.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're identifying a pattern, right? Like there is a certain group of people, right, that is serving that role because like the people who are stronger, they're not interesting, right? Because you cannot do the thing that you want to do with them. And so like yes, and yeah, like having an archetypical devil or some sort, right? Like someone embodying that which you hate is useful, right? Like because
Yeah.
now you can prove your strength towards the people who stand behind you, and yes, like you're forming two sides, and well, they have to be in opposition at this point, right? And then it's like,
Right.
well, like what is the conversation that they were having? Or like that
Mhm.
conversation becomes impossible to be constructed, right? And we've seen this
Right.
with the new atheists. We've seen this with a lot of groups, right? Where yeah, like the discussion becomes impossible. Like I want to point at the demonstration people again a little bit, right? Someone said these people are good people because they want to save people. They're against occupation. They're against blah blah blah. Literally on a post that was like relating to the occupation of a place in the Netherlands
Right.
by these same people, right? And so the people who are against occupation are occupied,
Yeah.
and they don't see the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
They
Right.
don't see it.
Would
Right.
they not be the first people to occupy Wall Street when that was going on?
Right.
Right. Exactly. And to what end, right? To no good end. Tim Pool talks a lot about this because he was there, right?
Yeah.
I do want to, Ethan, what's wrong with it being God's judgment for us against us for the age of gnosis, the worshiping and pursuing knowledge for knowledge's sake? Yeah. Well,
People are
maybe.
delivered over to their sin. That's possible. Yeah, sure.
Sally Joe, apparently destiny is a child sacrifice name. Gross. Yeah.
That was exactly what I was saying. He's just sacrificing his life, morals, and otherwise to be put as on these shows.
Well, and the thing is, what people don't realize, and this is way more true. Like if you knew how true this was, you'd be scared. Things get named appropriately eventually, right?
Yeah.
You don't remember DEI was originally DIE.
Yes, it was.
And the only reason they changed it is because Jordan Peterson pointed it out to them. And now they're going to change it again, by the way. And it's, of course, no better because none of those combinations work in their favor. And that's a problem. That's a
Right.
problem.
Yeah. EID,
I'm-
IED.
I'm actually a little bit upset by this idea of a child sacrifice, right? Like it's instead of having a scapegoat, it's a scape child, right? Like
Well,
someone who
that's the sacrifice. That's
terrible.
a scapegoat is a sacrifice.
yeah, but the point is, right? Like the scapegoat is placed upon someone who's immature, right? It this like Destiny is a child, right? Like
They're
he's
using
just
him. Yeah, I see what you mean.
and
Right, but
so-
also he has a son that he doesn't have a good relationship with.
yeah, but
I believe
like,
it's
but it doesn't matter, right? Like it putting it on a child is taking it away from reality.
Yeah,
Because children don't live in reality. and maybe that's the thing that we're disgusted by so much, right? Because in a sense, right, like we are being dragged into the role play of a child with some older children.
Right. Right. No. Effectively, Dan Smith. Interesting. So, how do you reckon it's such a name? Yeah. Well, look, these things unfold in the way that they unfold, and they're very, very clear. And that's the problem. It's like you can try to hide your evil, but actually, it's going to come out. And the problem is that people won't believe it. And like people can tell you, we are die. That's our thing. And people don't believe it, right? And then Peterson points it out and they change the acronym and people still don't believe it. And like, no, they told you exactly who they were and what they were about from the beginning. Sally Joe, we are sacrificing a lot of children to the of God to covenants. Yeah. Stephen isn't living in reality. No, Stephen is not living in reality. And that's the problem. And Gartham, welcome. I mean, to be fair to Steve, he does take to the streets sometimes. Yeah, okay. He isn't completely terminally online. No, but also he's making a claim to know things when he clearly hasn't even Googled them. That's the problem. Like, I don't, whatever. Like, I pot calling kettle black. I'm online a lot now. And I wasn't always, right? And I get out when I can, but I can't physically often. And so, like, But I actually do my research. I spent 4 hours on an hour of this video doing research. He doesn't do that. That's abundantly clear. That's why he doesn't stand by his points, and he uses these sneaky stuff, right? And yeah, okay, Google stuff on his stream. Yeah, maybe, but
Yeah,
he
on the
doesn't
stream,
remember any of it.
Well, anyone can hop on a stream, play a video game to get eyes on it, start waxing political, and then Google the things that he comes up with on the spot. That's not synthesizing anything.
Right.
And okay, fair enough. Like maybe he's done things, but he's been proven wrong on things that he's claimed
right
for months, years, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, years and years. Well, so and he rarely claims things because he's sneaky. It's a good tactic if you're dumb or you're wrong or you're ignorant to not make claims.
He just says, well, it's interesting that this might be the case. No claim. He essentially tries to, prevaricate or
super sneaky. And look, I use the same not claim trick, right? And I go, oh, you think you nailed me down, but I didn't actually make a claim, right? I let people project. I know how to do that, for better or for worse, and it works remarkably well, to be quite honest, right? But I will make claims, right? And like this all started with my claims that he's a loser, and then he was in an open relationship, and maybe the guy you don't like, who's Andrew Tate, who like maybe doesn't deal with women in the best way possible, according to you. Maybe the guy you put up against him is not Stephen, who clearly has a similar issue. And we can argue about who's worse if you want, I guess, but that wasn't my point. My point was, by doing this, you're going to highlight Tate. And as I have pointed out before, now Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, who's coming back into the YouTube space again because of Gamergate 2.0, is siding with Tate publicly. That is not what anybody wants. Not what I want. It's not even what I want. I'm not here to support Andrew Tate or Nick Fuentes.
Right. But you find yourself having to, in some sense. I mean, no choice. I listen to people like Fuentes, and I'm like, calls out evil. Like what? Good point. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, I'm not going to vote for the guy, but maybe I will. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's very hard to hate people that speak out against evil very clearly when people like Destiny are not willing to do so. They're only willing to identify against those who aren't in the political framing that he likes.
Right. Well, and it is all political frame, and the people that are supporting Stephen are also stuck in a political frame. And I understand that you're overloaded trying to understand too much of the world, but also you did that to yourself. And
that's true.
Yeah, you're gonna end up in a political frame because you can't do that as a single person. I don't care what your IQ is. It doesn't matter.
No,
I have the same criticism of Eric Weinstein, who knows about as much about politics and understands the political machine 0%. Like actually 0%. Like some of his proposals and stuff are so stupid, it's hard to imagine, right? But that's what happens when you overload your brain and try to understand things that you just don't have the capacity. Everybody has a limit. I don't know what everybody's limit is. I don't even care. I just need to know they have a limit, and that maybe they're delving into things they don't know anything about.
This is interesting.
But yeah, I want to take this one because
go ahead. Because I was
I was gonna say something like this, right? It's like, yes, Steven is taking a position, like he's in some sense he's been through the same thing, right? He's been banned on Twitch, and like I read something about YouTube, right? Like he's been banned for being an idiot, right? Because like he's done bad and wrong stuff. Like so, like I think it even admit that he's rightfully been banned. But yeah, like okay, so he's like them, right? Like that's why he was in the conversation. Like they're alike, and he's standing on the opposite side, right? Yeah. And this is what I was pointing to with the white knighting, right? So he's I don't know what side he's on actually. Like I don't know what's there on his side, but he's pushing back. But it's like, first of all, what is the thing that you're pushing back on? Like, why is this important? And in what way? Right? Because the point that I was making at the start is like he does not have a sense of relevance. Like he does not know what's relevant. Like he's not.
But actually, he's not pushing back because he's not standing anywhere. He's not making any claims and saying, this is my claim. What he's doing is he's very sneakily redirecting the conversation, which is like, I'm not even saying that's completely invalid. What I'm saying is he's not standing anywhere. And so he's not actually pushing back. He's just arguing with people. Just for the sake of arguing with them. And when he gets caught lying, which is almost all he ever does, 80% of everything he said in that first hour of that conversation was actually wrong, just flat out incorrect. And we go like things like Nick said this when Nick never said anything like that. Like he's just lying to you and you don't notice. And fair enough, right? But also you're enchanted, and maybe don't be enchanted by that guy. I'd rather you be enchanted by Andrew Tate. See, and I have to do it. I have no, like, I'm forced into this stupid situation, unnecessarily stupid situation, because you're enchanted and you don't see, well, if it's the lesser of two evils, it ain't Steven, buddy, because he didn't stand on anything. He didn't say, oh, well, this is how I'd run free speech. He never said that. He said, well, I don't like the way other people are implementing free speech, and Elon Musk isn't doing the right thing. Is that pushing back against Elon Musk? Like, that's not pushing back against anything. That's just complaining that things aren't the way you want them in your head, and without saying how you want them.
The reason I know he's not standing on anything is when he was banned, found a home on Nick Fuentes' streaming channel for a while. And he and Nick were somewhat amicable, or at least cordial. And I don't want to call him a grifter, but I think he's a grifter. Like, I'm just saying, that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like.
No, he definitely is. But look, he's not giving anybody an alternative to do anything. He's not a role model. He's a flag. People rally around him because he has the echo chamber, and he just echoes the echo chamber louder and louder and louder. And people like that because it's comforting. So it's nice to hear that you're right about everything, right?
Yeah. I also don't know that just this idea that like, oh, he's the only one pushing back against red pillars. Why is it a good thing to push back against red pillars? Why?
Yeah. What if they're right? And
right. Well, why is that bad to be a red pillar? And I don't even know what that means really, but just saying, is it okay to identify against something? Because like, do you know what I'm saying?
That's the rebel spirit, Bruce. That's the rebel. Like, we're just going to be against whatever structure there is. And they are. They're again. This is why they can't build anything. They never build anything, ever. And what lifestyle is he pushing? Losing his wife and son to a bigger cuck than he is? Like, I don't understand. Like, what message are you actually sending to the world? This was my whole point with my tweet response is this is not the guy to hang your hat on, especially not if you're going up against Andrew Tate, who has a message about how to be, who to be, why to be, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the whole package.
Modern stoicism with the machismo, thing.
I don't like his package.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the hypermasculinity. But if you force me to choose between polyamory and hypermasculinity, I got news for you. I got news. The polyamory didn't work.
This on record, Mark does not like Andrew Tate's package. On record. Well, that's a perfect headline. No, but yeah, I think it's absolutely correct. Which one would you rather have?
Well, who's actually giving you something? Yeah. Stephen is not actually giving you anything. If you think he is, you projected that into what he said. He didn't say that. He hasn't given you a method. Did he give you a method to be a gaming streamer like him and super popular? No, he did not. Right. Did he give you a method for like having a family? Like whatever he did didn't work. Like where's that method? Did he give you an ideal? Oh, I ideally play games 10 hours a day on Twitch. Is it really? I mean, you can do that. I don't care that you're a loser, but also you're a loser. Like, whatever, dude. Like, you're allowed to be a loser. You know, am I going to judge you? I judge everything. Everybody does. Anybody says they don't judge is a liar. Flat out. Just the way the world is. Right? In order to take action in the world, you have to judge. I have 3 live streams on that. Right? I have this whole thing. Right? This whole thing, discernment, judgment, action. Check those out. They're good. Right? That's how the world works. Like, sorry, he's not someone I look up to. And what would I be looking at? And look, if you've got something, like, bring it. Tell me what it is that he gives you that you think you can exemplify. That would be wonderful.
He gives you. I mean, I could try and play devil's advocate a little bit and say he gives you proof that you can play video games and monetize it.
Right. I mean,
that would be the best thing you could say. I don't know.
And look, Garth, the problem is saying people are cringe isn't saying anything. It's just saying you're a rebel and you don't like something. Oh, yeah. Do you want to know how many things I don't like? Oh, this is cringe and that's cringe. You know what? You know what's cringe? I'll tell you what's cringe. Okay, freaking Bruce and his stupid friends drinking freaking whiskey. That's cringe, dude. That's cringe. Why? Because I don't drink alcohol. Who cares? Like, what kind of a ridiculous? That's not an argument. You didn't make an argument. You said, I don't like that. You need your diaper changed? I mean, really, grow up. This is the whole point. Stephen is a child. Don't be like a child. You don't need to be. You could be an adult. Sally Joe, there you go. The women find him creepy. Stephen is creepy. Yes, he is.
I agree. I called him creepy as well. Like, and I call him an arrogant twat as well. I was gonna bring up.
Wait. Sally's got a point. She has completely redeemed him. Proof that you can play video games, right? And you can lose your wife and still earn money.
Oh my
That's
God.
fantastic. You should do that with your life. Loser.
Yes. He's setting an example of the masculine dream. It's like,
right.
like all the people who gave up on women.
Yeah. Or you take the Tate route and you say, I'm going to use my physiognomy, women's weaknesses, give them money, exploit their body, and give me money and a life. And so and both of them have horrible orientations, right? But which one is more attractive?
Right.
Just honestly.
One of them gets a woman at least.
But the point that I was gonna make, right? Like, I don't know. Like maybe I'm wrong. Like, now I'm defending Tate. Like, why am I here?
It's easy to do. It's not hard to defend him.
But these people in that conversation, right? I'm just gonna qualify it. They were making good points, like Bruce said, right? And like I was agreeing with them, and they were actually trying to achieve something, right? They were like, oh my god, like there's this thing going on, right? And like they might misidentify it or whatever. Like doesn't matter. Like there's this thing going on. Like I wanted to stop, right? Which might be foolish, right? Like we have people doing foolish things all the time and trying to stop things that they can't control. But also like there's something, well, to go back to the hero, right? Like they're trying to embody the whole role of a hero.
Right.
And
Right.
and who's in front of them, it it's not like the man in the suit from the established order, right? Like
Right.
that's not who's in
Right.
front of them. No, in front of them is a rebel, right? Because
Right.
like I'm looking at him and this is a video. Destiny tries to mock Islam on Sneaker's stream, right? It's like who's this guy? This guy is someone who's making fires for the smoke. Like
Right.
that's who he is.
Right. Well, no. Let's be totally fair, Gartham. You guys know that Steven used to be a pro gamer, right?
Yes, yes.
Like, can you say loser louder? Why do you think this is a plus? This is all minus. Tate used to be a freaking MMA fighter.
He
What
was an
would you rather
incredible
be?
kickboxer. Like
Right.
incredible. Like
Well-
very good.
What would you rather be? A useless loser, alone gamer in mommy's basement, professional so you can make money. And let me be freaking abundantly clear. Any idiot can make money gaming. Sorry. You don't even have to be good. Like, I don't know
Just
what to
do it
tell
often.
you.
Yeah, just stream often.
Right?
Right. Well, stream often and
Look-
make a lot of smoke. That's
look,
the point.
it's-
Like,
His team was third in some worthless e-game freaking contest. Third. I don't want to be third. Sorry. I don't know. Why do you think this is a plus?
But also like fine, right? There are people that excel in lots of areas, but that's not what I want people to go toward. Like
Right.
I'm not gonna invite those people and say, hey, hey son, here's someone that you should meet. They're an autodidact. They've done some great things in their life. My son's like, whoa, did you get Aaron Judge to come to our house? No. I have Steven Destiny here who has made a living gaming. And that's what I'm gonna put in front of my son. You know what I mean? Like, here's the other litmus test. Would you trust any of these people to watch your kids?
Right.
And I might trust Tate, actually. Might.
I would trust Tate with a child.
But
Oh, yeah.
not Destiny.
There's no way.
Or
There's no
Steven.
way.
I mean, to be fair, like if I had a 16-year-old daughter, I might not trust Tate, right? But I'm saying like
Yeah.
other, young men, right? Like this is what I need. I hate defending Andrew Tate, but it's too easy.
It's horrible. This is
too
horrible.
It's
This
too
is a
easy.
terrible situation to
But
be
I'm
in.
gonna try. I'm trying to be somewhat even-handed though, because there were some times, right? Father Eric said the same thing I just said. Yeah, I wouldn't trust him with a 16-year-old.
I wouldn't trust him with a teenage girl.
No, definitely not. But to be fair with Destiny, I was agreeing with him in some of his points with the poor rhetoric coming from the other side, right? Their rhetoric is bad, and the way that they presented the information was really bad, and
Yep.
Destiny was able to dismantle that. And I did agree with some of those approaches that he had.
Sure.
No,
Well, and that's the thing. It's not like everything he does is worthless. And that's what fools you, right? This is what fools you. Like you use a kernel of the truth to tell a lie, right? I did before I go back into that. Sally Joe, the whole effeminate and hateful resentment of trad women makes sense now. The gamer bros want men to support their lifestyle with no cost. Right. Of course they do. Of course. Like everybody wants that. I want somebody to support my lifestyle with no cost. That would be freaking fantastic. Right. But I'm a realist and also not lazy. And I would feel bad if that happened because I'm a man.
yeah.
Like I don't
Father Eric
want
says the right thing again.
that.
He again, there's a market for real patriarchy on the internet. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, people don't realize that. Dan Smith, effeminate men help bring society to the place we are today. Abso-freaking-lutely. That's 1,000% true. And people don't like it, but it's true.
I've seen gamers get girlfriends, right? And it's like, how do you think that houses, right? Like how do you think that kid grows up?
I like that. How does that house? That's a good verb.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Look,
like-
look, World of Warcraft. We knew a couple in World of Warcraft. Now, I was single at the time. My buddy was married. He's not married to that woman anymore. Hint, hint.
Shocker.
Right. Shocking. Right. But this couple, they had kids. And we would listen to them as we were, grinding in World of Warcraft. Right. And they're arguing with one another outside of game and in game about gaming things. Right. And the kids are in the background screaming for their parents. This is not good. Like, I don't know what else to tell. Like, why do you think this is a plus? Gaming is a poison upon society. How's that? Okay, I'll just say it. It's a poison. And, it's not to say you can't use it. Like, tomatoes are poisonous. You can eat them in moderation. It's not a big deal, right?
Yeah, it really does break my heart.
Look at poison. Poison, Manuel. Poison. Right.
What are you doing to yourself?
I'm actually sick, and I'm wondering if it's from the tomato plants.
Well, yeah, that was from earlier conversation on Discord. Why? Yes, it was. And that's the problem. It's not. If someone supports your lifestyle at no cost to you, then you are a slave. Exactly. Thank you. Right. Yeah, you're a slave at that point. And like, people they think they can get out of the master slave dichotomy.
You can't.
Right?
You can't.
The master dichotomy is the patriarchy. Yeah, right. And the slave dichotomy is actually also the patriarchy, by the way. But it doesn't have to be patriarchal, right? And you can't get around it. You cannot get around it.
Gamers continue to be oppressed.
No, not enough. Not enough. They should
I
be
like
suppressed from the world to save the universe.
That's gold. What?
That's why they're all rebels.
How are they? In what sense are they oppressed?
Yeah, they're oppressed.
What is that?
No, they're oppressed because the four of them that want to run some big world game that's not profitable for the company, they can't because the company's shutting down the servers. That's gamer oppression. There was an article about this. No word of a lie. I think it was this week or last week. I read it. I was like, "Are you effing kidding me? Do you people not understand numbers? Like, what is wrong? Why?" They're trying to get a law passed, Bruce. No word of a lie. A law that these companies have to run the servers for so long.
Like too big to fail?
Right. It's too big to fail all over again.
Well, to be fair, right? Like the problem with games nowadays is that they're online, right? So they have this thing that you can't buy physical copies anymore, so you always have to be online. And then they throw off the service after like 8 months, right? So you're not buying a game anymore. You're just buying a subscription to the servers.
But but you can't. The cost of running games in the cloud is astronomical.
No, I get it, but they're doing it because they want to do the DRM nonsense.
Yeah, right.
They're doing it because they're following a bad pattern and
they want investors. Yeah, they continue to.
I've been to these companies. The people that run them are retarded. Technically, they're slow in the head. I'm not joking. They're slow in the head. You can tell them. I have been the person telling them, that's not going to work. It's going to cost you too much money. And they're like, nah, bro, it'll be fine. We'll make it up in volume. And they don't.
Volume and investment, and we'll get on.
Gamers continue to oppress themselves and depress the rest of us. That is true. Father Eric, by the way, is a former gamer. So
no, not former.
Well, maybe not former. To be fair, if you're not going to run it, they should make it open source. Well, and they often do. The problem is, as Bruce has pointed out, Bruce and I are both actual experts in cloud technology. It is prohibitively expensive to run these damn things. It's just really freaking expensive. Father Eric claims he's recovering.
Okay, yeah, I like it.
That's the problem. And look, Garth, it's not game companies. People that run companies, almost all of them are actual idiots. And almost all of their management is stupid. And that's why they used to hire consultants like me to come in and tell them things which they would pay me a hell of a lot of money for, to be honest with you, right? And then ignore it all, by the way, which is even dumber. So you knew you needed my help. I came in, I gave you a freaking analysis. I wrote it all up. I showed you all the numbers and everything, usually with a team of people. I didn't do this by myself too often, although a few times I did. And you paid a huge amount of money for that, and then you threw it all out and did what you wanted to anyway. And if you don't believe me, go watch Bar Rescue or Kitchen Nightmares. You can watch these shows. You can see how businessmen behave. and then realize that businessmen do that at the larger level, right? And there's that other show too. I forget what it is. It was on CNBC with Marcus Lamone, who's a total fake, by the way. The Prophet, that's what it's called, right? But you watch these guys interact with these business people, and they do not care about the money at all. At all. The problem with businesses and money is they have too much in most cases, right? Or in the case of the small business, it's all ego. They have no interest in money. And everybody says, oh, they do it for profit. No, they don't. You go to a big business in particular, or even like a medium-sized business, they waste more money than you can imagine. And if you try to fix it or make it better for them, they're just going to hate you for it. And they're not going to do it. And if you do fix it, because I've saved companies hundreds of millions of dollars in my career, for real. No question about it. They don't care. They don't give me a cut. They don't do anything. They don't give any care at all to it.
Chill out, Lennon. Chill out, Lennon. They don't deserve. You don't have to get any more money from them.
Oh no, I'll take the money. No, I need the money. What are you talking about?
No, Mark, and I have to take out the servers a day earlier. Like, what are you talking?
Yeah, it is an absolutely poorly run business. But in making it somewhat relevant to this, genius of Elon, throw everyone on here. Get the porn out there, the verbal debate porn. People will eat it up with a spoon. You know what I mean? It's going to be attractive. People are going to want to see these spaces and listen to these retards.
Right.
Right. And I'm saying retard. I'm sorry if that offends people, but
and so maybe we can get constructive, because like we're also wanting to shit on people and like somewhat fair, right? But like they were
deserve ridicule.
Yes, but the problem is, right? Like, okay, like they're trying to come together, right? And like they are trying to do something, right? But they can't commune. Like that's the issue. They can't truly come together, and it's like, well, yeah, like if we want to change the culture in some sense, right? Like we need to provide an alternative. We need to provide.
Well, that's the
exemplification in maybe in how to like not get caught in these things, right? Because like things like people rapid firing, yeah, that should not be allowed. Like, because that's not a tactic that can lead to anything good. Like,
but that's the point. Like, they never have a positive identification for something. They never have one, right? And they gather together, and I get that, Gartham. Yeah, they get a Discord server, dude. You know how many Discord servers there are that have gone dead? Like, Eric Weinstein had a Discord server. It was awesome. People were super excited. Did he build anything with it? No, he blew it up because he's an idiot. That's what happened. He's socially retarded, like for real. He's very slow on the social thing. And he went on there and blew it up and then made everybody fight and fought with everybody else. Eric Weinstein did that. He did that. I know. I was there. I wasn't on his server, but I was watching all the refugees and hearing all the stories on there and on Clubhouse and everywhere else from people who were there, right? These people, they get together. They have a flag. They're in the echo chamber together. I get that. They're never going to build anything, ever. No matter how many people they have, no matter what tools they use, no matter what technology that comes to bear, they're never going to build anything. They haven't put a positive vision into the world. So even if they actually wanted to build something, and I don't think they want the responsibility, I don't think they'll take the leadership, and I don't think they have the skills, but even if they wanted to, it's never going to happen. They don't have a vision. They're not giving you a vision. They're tricking you and keeping your brain busy so you don't notice that they don't have a better answer. They don't have any answer. They don't have a bad answer. They've got no answer.
And to talk about Eric Weinstein a bit more, right? Like he somewhat had a vision, but what was the vision? Make me famous, effectively, right? Prove me right. Like that was his vision.
Well, and you can do that because that kind of worked. Like I get that. If you get people together, you can point their attention, and that can move things in the world. Okay, but you're not building anything. You're just moving the pieces around. And yeah, maybe you get somebody into office. Who cares? So what? That didn't change anything. Didn't change anything. And maybe that politician even did what you thought they were going to do. It's one politician, dude. It's not going to change anything. And that's the whole problem. Like, he's not building anything. No,
But
I don't.
yeah, I mean, building something here, okay. But the Tower of Babel was a building. Should you build it? Was it a good thing?
But look, do you consider his channel and his network connection something that he has built? No, he didn't build that. First of all, none of the infrastructure is his. The fact that you planted a flag in the ground and some people found it attractive doesn't mean you built anything. It means you planted a flag in the ground. Any idiot can do that. To the earlier point, lots of people had Discord servers. I have a Discord server, right? We actually do stuff on it, but whatever. Other people have Discord servers and they do nothing with them. Almost all the Discord servers do nothing. And there are a few very good Discord servers where they do awesome stuff. That's true because they're building stuff. And the Discord server is an adjunct. It's an add-on to a different project, right? To another project, to a website or a set of forums or whatever, right? A place where people can interact in a different way using technology. When you use it as a tool, yes. When you get together a bunch of people and say, well, a bunch of people all own a hammer that you sold. Did you build something? I mean, you built the hammer maybe. Okay, so companies build hammers and a bunch of people buy them. Did they build the group of people that bought what's your argument? There's no positive vision. Tell me what he built. The fact that there's a network in the world is not interesting to me. And I'm an expert at networks too, by the way. So we can talk about that. We talk about network effects in society or on computers. They're actually follow many of the same patterns, incidentally. We can talk about that. I don't know what to tell you. Networks happen all the time with or without a personality. They just form constantly.
And it's like, okay, like who was the guy with the resentment guy? Anyway, like he got invited on Vervaeke's show, right? Like Nate Orman, I think it was.
Oh,
right?
Nathan Orman. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, right? Like he got a network too. Like he got invited, I think, on Van der Clay too, or at least he got attention from Van der Clay a lot.
A lot. Right.
And that guy went into a psychiatric institution, if I'm not mistaken.
No, literally mentally ill. Yeah. Actual mentally ill person. So yes, Gartham, you can use the network for mentally ill people to get in front of actual, intellectuals like John Vervaeke and then look stupid, by the way. And I would argue, yeah, you know what? Stephen got in front of Jordan Peterson and he looked like a retard.
And Ben Shapiro.
Stupid. He looked stupid. He didn't make any points. Everything that he said to Peterson was false. Everything. Which, look, let's give the guy some credit. How the hell do you say that many things and not accidentally make a truth statement? That's unbelievable. You probably had to put some effort into that. Good for you. Also, what the hell? I mean, come on. Give him credit. Credit for what? He got lucky. He was in the right place at the right time. That's it.
So what you're basically saying is the guy had some cloud and was pulling strings, and he ended up a place where he shouldn't be, because that's what happened.
Yeah, this is what I mean by people pulling him out like a parlor trick to beat on him.
Right.
It's like, bring out the GIMP. News is slow.
Right.
Like what are we doing?
Hey guys, do you guys know someone who's representing this position?
Right.
Oh yeah, Destiny. Let's get Destiny on.
But they won't do it with Nick. They won't.
Right.
They put Richard Spencer on, David Duke, all that. They won't put Nick on. Why? Because he's young, intelligent. He has a lot of good points, even if they are pretty anti-Semitic. You know what I mean? Like ethnically. But he has points and he doesn't come on. And it's really strange to me. I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on all the time, but that's weird to me.
Well, there were things too. And can Stephen explain it? No. And are you doing Stephen any favors by putting him in front of Peterson and making him look like a fool? And here's the issue. This is why this stream exists. I made a comment. It was a meta comment, if you will, about the clip, about the video that we're talking about, right? About that video. And I said, guys, this guy's a loser. Technically, just he lost stuff. He's a loser. He no longer has a wife and a kid, right? Who is not making good arguments ever. He's never made a good argument in his life about anything. I'm sorry. Just sorry, right? And you're holding him up because you don't like Andrew Tate. And that is going to backfire. And I was right. That's exactly what happened. It already happened. It's still unfolding now. And so here's the problem. You held this guy up. It was the wrong guy to hold up. And now we have a big problem, which is Andrew Tate looks much better. I don't like that. Why did you do that? You didn't
That
do it to
should
me.
bother you.
You didn't do it to me. You did it to everybody. Freaking Carl Benjamin is praising Tate, saying, oh, you're getting me on your side. This is not good. This is not good. And this is your fault for pushing this guy up. You keep defending him. Go ahead. Ruin the whole world.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
I want to say a couple of things, right? It's like, okay, first of all, why is this a plus? Everybody should do this, right?
He didn't do that in that conversation.
Hold on, Mark. Then secondly, there's the word humbly. I don't know if there's any way in which Steve can assume the posture of humility. Like, I don't think he's physically capable of it, right? And then thirdly, right, like, he's really selective in when and where and how he's doing it. And that point was made in the live stream, actually, right? Like, oh, they push out news in the news media.
Right.
And then when it has had the result that they want, they retract it when nobody's watching.
Right.
And
yeah,
like, that's the same strategy that Destiny is using. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, oh, I'm just gonna say this thing full of shit, right? And I get my effect in the moment, and then I can just retract it later. Like, who cares? Because it's not relevant, right? The relevancy is in the performance in the moment, right? Like, when he's in the spotlight, when he's in front of Peterson, right? Like, when he can score his points for his audience, right? By basically making claims that are not refuted, right? Because, like, when you make a claim that, oh, this is true, and Peterson, who's like the smart guy, whatever, is not calling you out on it for whatever reason, right? Like, this, there might just be a pragmatic reason, right? There might be a conversational reason not to call him out. Like, there might be a reason that if I bring this up now, we will spend up 30 minutes talking about it, and I don't want to spend 30 minutes on this, right? Like, there's many reasons not to call someone out, but when he says it, it's going to be there.
Right.
It's going to be a permanent stamp, and he's going to, like, retract it and get humble points on his live stream that nobody watches.
With his echo chamber. In his echo chamber, people will see it that way. No
This
one else
reminds
will
me-
see it that way.
It reminds me of an old bit where Chris Rock was like, "You get no credit for things you're supposed to do."
Zero.
Like, he's like, "At least I take care of my kids." You're supposed to take care of your kids. You don't get any credit for that. You also don't get any credit on changing your mind when you're wrong.
Like, yeah, exactly.
What?
This is normal human behavior for healthy, adjusted adults.
So is Ben Shapiro, by the way. I'm guessing, I could be wrong, that Destiny fans aren't big Shapiro fans and giving him credit where credit's due, I'm assuming.
Right.
So it's just okay, fine. Feather in your cap for doing what's right. He changes his underwear and takes a shower too, apparently.
And he was called out a number of times on a bunch of things that he's just plain wrong about. And it is no capitulation whatsoever. But again, more importantly, maybe you weren't here, Gartham. More importantly, The guy has no sympathy or empathy or care or whatever for other people at all. None. Like Nick Fuentes has been wronged, whatever you think of him, and I don't think much of him, but he has been wronged. And there's no like, oh, you're right about that. No, they shouldn't have done none of that. None of that. Steven doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He's like, yeah, too bad, dude. Like, oh, whatever. Maybe that's good.
Yeah,
right?
Let's just start playing the piano or talking over people so that like my
Right.
audience doesn't have to listen to
all
them.
of which he did. There's no bad faith here, dude. There's no bad faith. That's not what's going on. There's zero bad faith.
Well, what's the bad faith?
Yeah, where is this mystical bad faith? No, you're looking for family. No one does. He doesn't have a family.
I've given credit where credit's due. He does good, decent rhetoric, calls people out on their poor rhetoric, has some arguments that are correct, doesn't take the bait on stupid things. Yeah, but he's also a bit of a loser. And that's just calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, and if you support him, you're not doing him any favors. Like, keeping people from the failure that they deserve because they're making bad choices is protecting them in a way that's going to come back on them tenfold. And it's not going to be pretty when it does.
Yeah, and I was pointing earlier, the opposition making us support someone like Tate. This pattern sounds familiar.
Yeah, that was it Hitler, the guy that?
Yeah, maybe that guy.
Okay.
Old boy Adolf. Yeah, and there's been many people like this throughout the years where you hate the opposition, so you join in. Why?
Right.
Because I can't side with you.
Right.
Or you find yourself getting killed in the middle, which is maybe also where most Christians are in many of these scenarios. They get killed or hurt for standing up. It's right. But Bonhoeffer or someone like that, Ten Boom, right? So people in that era, but we're having to support people like Tate and Fuentes now because the left side of the aisle has lost their minds. And I'm not even a leftist. I'm not like a central classical liberal or something, but I mean, I can, sympathize.
Okay, you should watch the video. Like, he literally, when he gets called out, starts talking over someone to his audience, and he doesn't listen. He's not even listening.
Like peanut gallery, and he's like speaking to the peanut gallery as this crap show's going on.
And I'm just like, dude, this guy is horrible, right? Like, he's in a conversation and he's not conversing, right? And there was this one example, right? And it was an example to highlight something, and he's interrupting the conversation with the example for no reason. And it's like, what are you doing, bro? Like because you have an implication to a hypothetical, right? Because it was a hypothetical. It wasn't an actuality. It was a hypothetical. There's an implication to the hypothetical that you don't like, and that justifies you interrupting the hypothetical?
Because you see it coming. Well, then that's the problem. He sees the traps coming, right? Which is, sure, he sees some of this stuff coming, but he can't counter it with a positive message.
Preemptive strike, to try and get the heat off, right?
Right, and the thing is, like, we'll go back to Digital Gnosis, to Nathan Orman. So Nathan Orman somehow scores this thing with Vervaeke, right? And now one of the many things I am is an expert in Vervaeke's work, right? Like, for real. Like, I know his work pretty well, right? We've used his work pretty extensively. We're watching this guy. The way he got in was he tweeted some things at John that, sounded reasonably intelligent. And then John has a conversation with him, and it becomes abundantly clear in the conversation that Nathan Orman has never read a single academic paper of John Vervaeke's. It's very clear that he has not watched John Vervaeke's seminal series, Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. Very clear. And he had previously, and I could have warned John about this, come on the Discord server, the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server, and just basically attacked everybody there as being members of a cult. Probably not the kind of guy you want to have a conversation with about your work when he's coming on talking to all the people who are, actually enacting your work and calling them cult members. But whatever, John didn't get my advice, which is fine, whatever. But Nathan Norman looked like an idiot. That wasn't good for him. That wasn't good for him. He's very stressed out, right? And he's previously been in a mental institution. This is not good for these people. Why are you doing this to these people? It's not good for them. It's not good for Stephen to be in this position that he cannot hold. He cannot hold his own against an Andrew Tate or a Nick Fuentes. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, he can't do it. You're putting him in a position where he's going to fail big. I don't think that's good for him.
Yeah, that's not building him up.
It might build him up for a little while, but it's setting him up for a big fall.
Yeah.
I mean, what's he going to do? Go meet up with Andrew Tate in person and get kickboxed into oblivion?
No, that's the other thing. There is no consequence to these exchanges.
Oh no, there is.
Well, no,
not immediately.
There is.
Not immediately.
That
if there were, we wouldn't have them.
This is the problem that I wasn't going to point out. There is a consequence to the exchanges, but it's not to the person.
Well, no, there is to the person too. To be fair, Manuel. I mean, if you remember, Nathan Norman does this stream with Vervaeke, and I think it was a month later. It might be a little off on the time frame. He did a ranty video where I clearly had a break. There's no question. He had a break. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
And was it causal? I don't know, man. But like, if I got embarrassed that badly on a stream, his own guys were calling him out and saying, you don't even know Vervaeke's work. Like, your own team is pointing out that you made a mistake. That's not good for your self-confidence, especially when that's what you rely on. You rely on these anonymous streamers to help bolster your case. You're not doing them any favors. You're setting them up for a big fall, a really big fall. I don't like that. I don't want Stephen to fail because people propped him up that shouldn't have. I don't want that. I don't want
and maybe that happened to Stephen as well, right? Like, who knows why his marriage.
There is sort of low buy-in to these discussions, though. It requires very little effort, concern.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot. Like, yes, there are long-term consequences, and I don't want to deny the spiritual reality of people's souls being affected. But in the same sense, you may avoid some of these if there were more literal skin in the game when it comes to these exchanges.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that's the nature of the internet, right? Like,
yeah, it's
so
right.
many
It's something we have to
go.
consider. It is something we need to consider if we haven't already, and I'm sure we have. But like, I don't think we're prepared for this.
No, we flattened the world. We made everybody, equal access, which is a mistake. And now we've got people that have access to things they shouldn't have access to. And I haven't done the video yet, but it's on my list. Forbidden knowledge. Forbidden knowledge is a thing. Plato talks about it in the Republic, guys. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's right there in Plato. We should have listened. We should have read that book better.
The Bible speaks to it as the mysteries, right? The secret, sacred knowledge of Christ, the mystery of Christ. In a certain sense, that's what we would say as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. And, look, Nathan's a sad story. It's a bad story. Do you think that Stephen's going to get away scot-free too? Like, I don't know. And Sally's got a point. When you can't hold up your own name, it says something. Yeah, it says something. No, audience isn't skin in the game. Like,
the audience has no bearing on him.
They're going to leave you.
Yeah.
Your audience is going to go away someday.
Yeah. What is that? There's a famous quote about the audience and the fans. But essentially, they won't be there forever. Is the idea?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's flash in the pan. And when you rely on them, and then they're gone, you're screwed. And that's the thing.
Well, we were talking about this, right, with these streamers, right, and they're growing old. Like
Right.
they
Right.
have an issue with their audience. Like they
Right.
can't go on. Like I, I think it's all also right. Like we're talking about raising people up, right? Or we're talking about raising banners, and then we're putting people in positions that they shouldn't
Mm.
be in. Like this has been our criticism on Paul van der Klay as well, right? And and we had this conversation with Vervaeke, right? Where like the first time that we talked to him, right? Like he didn't know anything about us really, right? He's like, "Do you guys want to organize a conference?" It's like how does he raise us up to a position of organizing a conference without knowing us, right? Like it's this really weird thing is like why am I qualified to do that? Also, I'm on the other side of the ocean, bro. Like right, like I mean he didn't know any of it. And it's like when I would have said yes, right, because I'm like a fanboy, right, he'd have had his way, right? He's like, oh no, these guys are organizing a conference, and we're like
Right.
completely lost. We're gonna make a huge
Right.
failure out of it, right? Because we can't do, because we're not qualified.
Right.
And Vervaeke loses a bunch of money, right? Because like he's gonna have to fund this stupid thing, and like probably us as well, right? And it's like what is moving people to put
Right.
people who shouldn't be doing things in charge of things that they can't handle?
That redemption. They want to raise everybody up to make things equal. And look, Garth, yeah, his audience is pretty loyal when he left. They're not going to be loyal forever, dude. Ever. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, especially with that audience.
And the thing is, like, who cares? The fact that you get a temporary signal that you're not dead yet is not helpful when what's waiting for you is hell on the other side. Like, that's not great.
Well, I got to get going, guys, but it's awesome talking to you as always.
All right, Bruce.
Okay,
Catch you
man.
later,
See you
man. Good
soon.
to see you.
Yep.
And this is the problem. Like, you're setting somebody up for a big failure in the future by giving them these short-term success signals, especially
And,
when they shouldn't be successful.
and also like having a loyal audience if you're doing things that he's doing, right? And like you can watch his chat, right? Like his chat is also not nice to him, right? Like there's a lot of hate watching in it, in his audience as well,
Yeah.
and they're loyal hate watchers, right?
Right.
But okay, so you have a loyal audience that basically betrays you through being loyal, right? Because they're not giving you the signal that you need to get.
Right. Well, and that's the problem. You squish the world down. Oh, loyalty. Loyalty matters most. Does it? Your enemies are loyal. They're loyal in opposition. That's not a good way to measure the world, right? The world is complex. And this is the problem. This is why people are enchanted. The world is complex. You can't keep track of it all. So you end up focusing on certain things. People know that. They take advantage of it. And the next thing you know, you're caught in something terrible. Terrible. How do you think it happens? How do you think revolutions happen? How do you think the French Revolution happened? How do you think the Russian Revolution happened? This is not good. It's not good. It's not
Oh,
helpful.
okay. Like,
Again,
are
yeah,
you kidding yourself?
he is.
It's like, okay, Destiny is not audience pleasing, maybe, right? But
Definitely caters to his audience.
like he's a personality, right? Like he does his personality things, and that's giving his audience what they want.
Yeah,
That's
he
why they're
has a
loyal.
name. He has a fake name. That's catering to your audience. Sorry, it is, right? He keeps that name. He's got this personality that is not the same everywhere, by the way, right? And because he wants to be who he needs to be to make his audience happy effectively. Then I know he says stuff. He lies all the time, by the way, like literally all the time. Watch that video, like constantly through the whole thing. 80% of everything he
Also
said in
to
the first hour
himself.
was a lie.
Like I'm fairly certain that he believes these things about himself.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, for sure. He's enchanted himself, right? That's how it starts. And then also, right, in this video, he's playing piano, speaking with his audience while ignoring the conversation he's in. How is that not catering to your audience? I'd like to hear your opinion. I get that sometimes he opposes his audience and then says, I'm not catering to my audience. Those aren't the same thing. I know that you flattened it down. I get that because you kind of have to. I get it. But also, this is not what's happening. And that's what's important. It's all about recognizing what's happening. Using a fake name is a big tell. It's not the only tell. It's not the most important thing, but it is actually important. And when you put him up against Tate, Tate is going to increase in influence and Stephen is going to decrease in influence. Now, you can say, oh, his fans are really excited. Yeah, but he doesn't get any more. And that's the problem.
So, like when Tate would say, I don't cater to my audience, I would believe him. When Destiny says, I don't cater to my audience, I don't believe him. And you know why?
Right.
Because Tate knows what he wants and he does what he wants to get what he wants. Like,
exactly.
It's like.
And who would you rather follow? Somebody who knows what they want and can do stuff that gets them what they want? Or Steven? I don't know what he wants. I've never seen him do anything except lie a lot and sneak. He does a lot of sneaking, right? And just like say, no, you're wrong, and insult people because he doesn't have a point because he's wrong. This is not something I'm looking up to. Sorry. It's not something I want to embody. And on that note, I think we've gone on long enough, Manuel. What do you want to say for closing statements here?
Well, I just want to keep this one in the closing statement, right? So it's like, okay, like, yes, he was severely bored, right? Like, yes, he has genuine emotions, like, they are invoked by what he participates in,
right?
And they betray things about him, right? So if you are bored when you are talking to people that you come to talk to, then you cannot be a good conversation partner. I am just sorry. And you should not be in that conversation. And that's just proving this whole thing, right? He should not have been there. The stance that he was taking was obviously not one that was going to lead to anything good, apart from maybe him pleasing his audience, ironically, right? And like, you don't want a person that's so socially, I don't know, dysfunctional that he goes play piano in a conversation. Like, this is autism, like, on top level here.
Right. Well, he could have left, and he didn't. And that's the problem. Is that
Andrew Tate left?
Right, Tate left, and the conversation disintegrated immediately because Andrew Tate's a leader, and there was no one else that could pick up that leadership role in that way. And maybe they could have picked a different leadership role in a different way, right? But like, constantly, and this is the problem, right? So we have this poor person. Stephen is a poor person, just as a human being, just not up there. He's a child. He's basically a child. It's a poor person. Could be better. Could be a lot better. It wouldn't be hard to be better either. He's never going to get better because he's got all these people coming to his flag, hanging out his echo chamber, telling him he doesn't need to get better because he's awesome already. And then he's got all these people defending him when he needs the negative feedback that, no, dude, you're a loser and you have no positive message. And the things you're saying are just technically incorrect, like flat out wrong, period, end of statement, full stop, simple as. And because he doesn't have that negative feedback, because people deny it to him and instead spend that time, energy, attention trying to defend the indefensible, I have to defend Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this to me?
I wanna just. Oh wait, that's not the one I wanted to take here. But
a good one.
Like, I talk with Mark a lot, right? Like things are participatory, right? So you choose the conversation that you're gonna have to a really large degree.
Yep.
And he chose wrongly. And
Right.
he like, why are you bored? You're bored because you don't get to play the game that you want to be playing.
Right.
Like it's
Right.
not because
Or
the conversation was boring, it was because it didn't do what he wanted it to be doing. And like that's the whole problem. Right? Like the whole problem is he could have made that conversation not boring,
exactly. And he
but he
chose not to.
didn't.
He chose not to. Right. Right. And that's the issue. And defend him all you want. You're making the world a worse place. You are, actually. Don't do that. This is my whole point of the stream. Don't make the world a worse place by forcing us to say Andrew Tate is better. Because we're forced to now. We're forced to. Nick Fuentes is better. I'm forced to do this. I don't want to do this. I want to live in a world where we can transcend Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes, right? And Steven gets nothing because he deserves nothing because he's not going to build anything ever. Now, all the people in the world, all the network in the world is not going to manifest magically a thing. I know even John Vervaeke thinks that. I know Pastor Paul Vanderklay thinks that. It's demonstrably not true. It just doesn't work that way. Things emerge all the time. That is true. That doesn't mean they're built. That means things happen. And on that note, it's time to end the stream. I hope everybody will be better. And I hope everybody will try to make everybody else better. Because that's really what it's all about. See you later,
Yes.
everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day.